My toxic landlord increases my rent by literally $1,000, claiming that it's all because of inflation. But despite the fact that he raised it well beyond what would be reasonable, I decided to still get some petty revenge by costing this guy an extra $1,000 every single year by doing one thing that he would never expect. Here's what I did. Okay, to start things out, my husband and I moved to Western New York State in August of 2020 during peak pandemic chaos for his job. We sold our house in another state because the idea of being long-distance landlords during a global crisis sounded like an absolute nightmare. We knew this job wasn't going to be long-term, so we decided to rent so we didn't have to worry about selling a house when we moved to our home state. With 2 kids and a dog, we needed a place in a good school district that also allowed pets. The rental market was tight, but we managed to find a 3-bedroom apartment in a complex that seemed decent. The rent was $2,000 a month. It had a pool, a small gym, a playground, some basketball courts, and a one-time $500 non-refundable pet fee. And honestly, it sounded pretty reasonable. Now, the school district is excellent, and at first, the complex seemed fine. But then reality set in. It turns out that almost every rental in our district is owned by one guy. Yeah, that's right, just one person. He owns most of the rental properties in the area, and his staff handles the day-to-day management. There's constantly changes among his staff, and this is a big red flag. The ones who actually care and fix things quickly just don't seem to last that long. Since we moved in, our rent has climbed from $2,000 a month to $3,000 a month. Now, before people jump down my throat and give me an economics lesson, yeah, I get it. I understand inflation, but a rent bump up to like $2,400 or even $2,500 would account for inflation. And yeah, I used an inflation calculator to try and understand what it should be. But $3,000 for rent is just predatory. When tenants ask about the increase, management claims it's because of rising cost. I've made friends with several of the lifeguards and maintenance workers, and not one of them has received a raise in years. Nothing has been updated in the 5 years that we have been here. Maintenance takes ages now, and the work isn't great. They also closed the pool in mid-August, even though school districts don't start until Labor Day. They say it's because they can't find lifeguards, but the lifeguards have told me directly that they offered to stay and were told no. So basically, the translation means that the owner just didn't want to pay for it. Real estate taxes in the area haven't gone up either, and yes, I did check this, and in fact, they've gone down. Now, you might be wondering, well, why don't you just move? Well, it's because of the schools. That's the main reason we're here. We don't want to uproot our kids, and the landlord knows it. There are virtually no other rental options for this school that he doesn't own. We're not looking to buy either because we're moving back to our home state in a year or two. So basically, we're stuck, just like many other families and retirees in the complex. But with that in mind, this is where my petty revenge comes into play. There are over 150 apartments in this complex, and every single one has had the same kind of price hike. And don't worry, the landlord definitely is not hurting. When he shows up at the leasing office, he pulls in driving some ultra luxury car that costs more than a house. I'm not a car person, so I can't name it, but I looked it up once and it was literally over $500,000. And it's like, seriously, don't show up with a $500,000 car and then tell your tenants that you're barely breaking even. Get yourself a beat-up Camry for property visits and at least act like you're struggling. Now here's where things get nice and petty. I remember that when we owned a house, we had an above-ground pool with a heater. I didn't realize how expensive it was to run it continuously, so I kept it heated toasty warm for a couple of weeks. But when the energy bill arrived, my husband nearly had a heart attack. And it's like, oh man, that was an accident. But through that, I also learned exactly how pool heaters work. And when it's cool at night and it's only in the 70s during the day, it is very expensive to run a pool heater 24/7. So this past Sunday on the Sabbath day, the Lord came to me and showed me that the landlord needs to live his truth and help him not break commandment number 9. If he says the costs are rising, then this lady's gonna do the Lord's work. Now, it had rained a few days earlier and nighttime temperatures dropped into the 60s, meaning that the pool had gone cold. In June, the property manager had turned the heater on when the weather was cool, and so it was nice, but by July, the pool stayed warm on its own. Once the temperature dropped again, the water was freezing. The heater was still off, or at least set too low to actually activate. And of course, the manager of this section definitely got run out just like the rest of them. So I asked the lifeguard, is the pool heater in that little utility room next to the pool? And he said to me, it might be. The door's always open, but I think I'm just gonna look the other way. And they literally laughed as I was like, oh, okay, plausible deniability, smart move. Well, when I checked, the heater was there, and the temperatures were set so low it wouldn't even turn on. But you know what? I changed that immediately. I bumped it up to 85 degrees. I was tempted to go to 90, but that can trigger algae growth, and I want to enjoy the pool, not shut it down. Well, right away, warm water started flowing in, and it was glorious. Everyone at the pool that day noticed and commented on how perfect it felt. The next day, someone must have turned it back down, and I could tell the pool had cooled a little, so it was starting to get a little uncomfortable. So I just went right back over and I turned it up again, and I kept doing this every single day. And because I'm petty and you're here for this long tale, I did the math and I went down an ADHD rabbit hole, and I found a calculator that estimates pool heating costs based on size, outdoor temperature, and the heater settings. And the change in temperature I made will double the heating costs for the last few weeks of the season. I also did some quick math on what the landlord is making from these rent hikes. Even being conservative, he's pulled in an extra $600,000 per year by raising rent far beyond inflation. And he was already making a solid profit before. Look, I don't have a problem with someone making a profit, but I do have a problem with lying about costs, stiffing your workers, and pushing tenants harder than necessary just because you know they're stuck. If my neighbors are going to be out that money anyways, we are going to enjoy a warm pool. The people who were there this week got to enjoy the results of my small act of righteous rebellion, and so will the rest of the complex for the final weeks of the season. Godspeed, my petty friends, because this guy absolutely deserved it, and I wish I did this sooner. I love this so much because I can't stand landlords who act this way. Like, I know of people who have had really bad landlords, and this definitely fits the bill. They increase your rent, they're like, oh, we're barely scraping by. And then just like what the original poster said, they roll up and they're like completely fine. They've got a great car, they've got a great watch, they've got the newest phone. It's like so ridiculous. So if you turning on that heater cost them a couple extra $1,000, then honestly, this landlord definitely deserves it. Especially if they're gonna hike people's rent up who honestly are just trying to make a living. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by flying my mom and brother in from Brazil to visit me in the United States. Because right now, my mom has not only tried to ruin my relationship with my husband, but she's also turned my younger brother against me, someone I'm desperately trying to reconnect with after all these years. And at this point, I honestly do not know what to do. Here's what's happening. I live in the United States and hadn't seen my mom or 15-year-old brother in over a year. They live in Brazil and I wanted to give them a special experience. So I paid for everything, including 2 international business class tickets as we used to do once a year, to make them feel comfortable and loved. I had planned this trip with care, especially hoping to reconnect with my brother. But from the moment they arrived, my mom was cold, critical, and manipulative in 2 days. She made passive-aggressive remarks. She would say stuff like, "You could have married better." And she mocked the fact that I cook and care for my home, even though she lives in Brazil with maids and drivers, and she's supported largely by my help. But then things escalated. During a weekend trip, she messaged my husband privately, saying she wanted to speak to him alone. Well, he immediately showed me and told me he wouldn't be entertaining that. But the next morning while I was upstairs, she cornered him at the hotel anyways. He texted me while it was happening because he didn't want this drama or to even entertain this type of behavior because he was clearly uncomfortable with it. When I came down for breakfast, he told her directly, "Anything you want to say should be said between the both of us." But in that private moment, she had already tried. She brought up personal things I did over 6 years ago, trying to throw dirt and stir up doubt in our marriage. But what she didn't expect was that my husband already knew everything. And he asked her calmly and clearly, "Look, I know all of this. What exactly is your goal in bringing this up?" She then started to cry, and he was just all over meetings and asked us to leave the table at breakfast. And later, when we were in the room, I tried to ask why she would do that. Now, for context, we went to a really cool place for a weekend, and she just ruined it. She stayed in the room trying to burn down bridges with my own husband. After we arrive, and when she figured she won't manipulate my husband, and they clash personalities, she locked herself in the room for an entire week. Like, why would my mother try to sabotage her daughter's relationship with a man who is my partner, husband, and we're just so happy together? Well, after that, she tried to play the victim. And slowly, she turned my brother against me. The boy I love like my own son, the one I wanted to reconnect with, now barely looks at me and barely speaks. He stays in the room with her, and I just feel erased in my own home. We have 2 days left, and I'm emotionally drained. I gave them everything: comfort, love, respect, and I'm walking away with silence, manipulation, and heartbreak. What would you do after something like this? How do you recover when your own mother tries to burn down the life that you built and takes your brother with her? What should I do? Okay, first of all, I'm so sorry that this happened because this is not fair for you or your family at all. You literally flew them over to your place and you try to show them a good time and make them feel loved, and more importantly, reconnect with your younger brother, which I completely get. This really is a crappy situation. You don't deserve this, and this really sucks. But on that note, if this doesn't become like a learning lesson, in my opinion, and you now set boundaries between you and your mother, then honestly, this will be a complete waste and she'll try this crap again. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do, but if a family member of mine went to my partner and tried to to turn them against me, I would probably immediately start finding ways to cut them out of my life. That's just me though, I can't speak for you, but like you're literally telling me that you're giving them so much money and support and she's gonna turn around and act like this? Like dude, what's going on right now? This is not okay. That kind of garbage is unacceptable. And it really sucks because your brother's 15 years old and he can't really make decisions on his own yet. And to that extent, I'm so sorry, but it probably looks like you're gonna have to wait until he's 18 to really reconnect with him, which sucks. Like you don't deserve that at all. But for me, I would stop sending money and I would absolutely be like, okay, you want to treat me like crap? Congratulations. Here's a flight home early. Figure your life out. Because your mom is clearly taking advantage of you and you do not deserve this treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my ex-wife to the ER, even though she literally had other options available to her that could have taken her instead? Because right now I feel kind of like a jerk and I'm not sure what to do. Here's how it all went down. So this incident occurred a decade ago, but recently it came up in conversation with my oldest son, who was 7 years old at the time. While I believed I was justified in the moment, over the years I have come to the conclusion that I am not proud of my actions that day, even though my son maintains that I did the right thing. 6 months prior to this incident, my wife and I had agreed to divorce after her extramarital activities came to light. We agreed on everything except who would keep the house, but I told her unless she took over the mortgage and the utilities, I would not be leaving. 2 months prior, when it was evident that I was staying put, she made a play to remove me from the home and actually had me served with a 2-week temporary restraining order. Well, caught off guard, I rented a room with a coworker in the neighborhood and I hired a lawyer. I followed all the rules. I went to court, I answered all the judge's questions, and the temporary restraining order was revoked. After 3 weeks, I was back in my house and she was angrier than ever. And I'm including this background only because it explains my combative state of mind during the event. 2 weeks prior, I took my kids out of state to visit family for Christmas and New Year's. I asked my soon-to-be ex-wife, who we will call Amy, if she could shovel the walk and the porch stairs while we were away. Well, as you can probably imagine, she didn't do that. And upon our return, there were 2 inches of ice on the stairs and the sidewalk. The day after we returned, Amy had arranged to meet up with a Craigslist to buy a piece of furniture for the house that she had rented, and she was going with a friend who we will call Lisa, who had also set up a purchase of her own. When Lisa pulled into the driveway, Amy hurriedly ran out the door, slipped on the icy porch steps, and landed on a ceramic planter, cutting her hand open. Now, this wasn't a life or death situation, but there was blood and she did need stitches. She came back in freaking out, and I told her to go wrap it up and have Lisa take her to the emergency room. Meanwhile, Lisa had come to the door to see what the commotion was all about. I told Lisa that she needed to take Amy to the ER, and Lisa actually said to me that she wasn't going to blow off her meetup, saying that I should take her myself instead. But I said emergency room visits are not part of my role anymore. Lisa then actually accused me of mistreating her in some kind of way, but I just sarcastically asked her, okay, well, why do you want to leave your friend for someone who's mistreating you? Ultimately, Lisa left for her meetup, and I packed up the kids and dropped off Amy at the emergency room, and I just let her find her own way home. Now, if you had asked me the next day, I would have said I acted righteously and that Lisa should have stepped up for her friend. But with the clarity of time, I feel that I should have just swallowed my pride and better demonstrated for my kids how a father should act. So seriously, lay it on me. Am I the jerk for the way I handled this? Because right now, I'm not really sure if I made a mistake. Okay, maybe this is brutal, but absolutely not. I don't think you're the jerk. She literally tried to pull a restraining order on you just because she didn't want you living in that house anymore. It's like, dude, you're paying for everything, and she's trying to be like, I want the house, you need to leave. And now she slips and falls because she didn't take care of the sidewalk. Like, dude, this is literally her own fault. And like you said, dude, she's not dying or anything like that. So for her to be like, you're mistreating me, by the way, give me a ride. And it's like, okay, I'll give you a ride, but you're gonna figure your life out otherwise because I got nothing for you. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I guarantee you if the roles were reversed, she absolutely would never help you out. And that is not fair for you in the slightest. Today, I messed up by lying to my girlfriend about how much I like her cooking, which then has resulted in her family thinking that I'm an amazing chef. And right now, I feel like I'm completely out of my depth, and honestly, I'm starting to panic. Because my girlfriend's dad has invited me to cook for his birthday next month, and I'm struggling to figure out what I'm gonna do when that day shows up. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been dating my girlfriend for just under a year. She is amazing, she's funny, she's supportive, and honestly, one of the kindest people I've ever met. But early on, she cooked for me, and I would find it terrible. I remember one time she made a smoothie that had a cucumber, yogurt, and garlic in it. But this is where I messed up. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I just said it was creative and tasted different, but in a good way. And this sparked something in her, and she just started cooking even more. Then I tried doubling down on the compliments, thinking it would slow down eventually, but it definitely didn't. So now, fast forward to a few months ago, and I made a simple pasta dish at hers. Literally just garlic, olive oil, and chili flakes. Her mom came over mid-meal, tried a bite, and said, "Oh wow, you made this? You must really know your way around a kitchen." I then panicked and I nodded, but my girlfriend smiled and said, "Oh, he's too humble. He always makes stuff for me when I'm sick." And now her whole family thinks that I'm some kind of like secret chef. I've even been invited to cook at her dad's birthday next month. They've even bought me an engraved apron that says my name and then calls me chef on it. So now I've been watching YouTube cooking tutorials at night, trying to learn enough to survive this lie. And the worst part about it is that my girlfriend still cooks for me, and I still fake it every single time. I know I should come clean, but I feel like I've waited so long, and I think it'll just cause chaos. I can't tell if I'm protecting her feelings or if I'm just being a coward, because right now this honestly just really sucks. I would hate being in the middle of this, dude. I cannot cook to save my life, and if someone actually was like, oh wow, you can really cook well, and then started like inviting me over places, I would be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I can't say I wouldn't do what the original poster did. Like, I would just play along and be like, oh yeah, I'm a chef, let's do this. And then just secretly watch YouTube videos and be like, okay, how do I cook? I really don't know what I'm doing. So hopefully this works out, and hopefully you become that master chef that everybody thinks you actually are. Because this is hilarious, and I really wish I could be like a fly on the wall to see how all this goes down. My boyfriend won't let me go over to his house anytime his female housemate happens to be home. And right now I'm starting to get really suspicious that something bad is going on, but I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background, my boyfriend and I have known each other for a long time, but only became friends around 2 years ago and started dating in March of this year. Now, about a month into dating, my psycho housemate basically kicked me out over the fact that I now had a boyfriend. My boyfriend offered for me to stay with him until the end of my lease in May, because my only other option was to move 2 hours away. Now, I confirmed over and over again that this would be fine for him. And you know what? He insisted. I made it clear that I can't go halfway when it comes to rent, but I would pay for whatever I could, and I would keep up with the cleaning and laundry for him. At this time, he had a housemate who wasn't paying rent and caused him a lot of stress. So when that came to a very dramatic head, the housemate was kicked out, and my boyfriend started the search for a new housemate. About a month or two goes by, and things are tense with my boyfriend and I. He seems to be resenting me in his space and his lack of freedom, but even still, I confirmed that he's okay with me staying there until I get my bond back, and again, he insists that it's fine. But right now, I'm starting to be unhappy too, because it's hard not to be in that situation. But I finally found a new place for myself, and I have about 2 weeks to move in. And also at this point, I had started paying half of the rent at my boyfriend's place, along with continuing to look after the house. When I have about 3 days left before I can move, I'm walking from work to my boyfriend's house, and he calls me to say that someone's moved in and that I shouldn't freak out when there's stuff there. Now, I was excited for him because he's been so stressed out about it. And when I asked too, he said, oh, it's just a girl from work. And I thought to myself, okay, that's completely fine. I do know he spent quality time with most of the girls from his work, if you know what I mean. And this is all before we started dating, but that hasn't bothered me up until this point. The next day, I come home to his house, and the new housemate has kicked my clothes out of the way. And I would have cleaned them up before I left had I known that she was moving more stuff that day, but I just got no warning at all. After that, things became strained between my boyfriend and I, and basically I didn't like how things were being handled, and I noticed that he was being really guarded. We ended up breaking up for a week because everything was so heightened, but we talked it out and got back together again. And now the month or so that we've been back together has been absolutely great, and we've gone out and done a lot of fun things. However, I have not learned a single thing about his housemate, and he has made it clear that he's not comfortable having me over when she's home. One night, him and I were out, and I asked if I could come back to his place, and he said no because the girls from his work were all drinking at his house, and he spent quality time with most of them, so he said that would make him uncomfortable. He also said he wants to keep his work life and private life separate. I then commented that maybe he should not have moved in with someone from work, but he responded by saying, oh, I had no choice, this conversation's over. Ever since then, we haven't discussed the situation further, even though he knows I find it odd. Now, I can't accept the situation as it is. No matter what his reasoning is, I feel stupid for trying to pretend the situation doesn't bother me. I don't want our relationship to end, because I do actually trust him, and I love being with him. I just refuse to be in this situation anymore. I find it embarrassing and naive to accept it at face value, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share, and honestly, things get incredibly weird. Here's what she had to say. Okay, I want to start off by saying that yes, I get it, I'm very stupid. I will add though, I am allowed in his house when she's not there, so I have seen that his room doesn't have any women's belongings in there, even when it's a last-minute stop-in. When we first started dating, he introduced me to everyone in his life. I met people he worked with, just not the girls. He never tried to hide me away. He brought me to Easter with his parents, and outside of this situation, there's nothing he's done to make me question him. I didn't move into his house when he needed a new housemaid because it was too much for both of us, and we both agreed we wanted a chance at dating before we jumped into living together immediately. There is a chance this girl's a lesbian if she's the coworker he says she is, but I'm honestly starting to question that as well. We go out 3 times a week and he stays over at my house, and the only nights I don't see him is when either of us are working nights. So honestly, at this point, I feel very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. too. Okay, believe it or not, we have one last update from the original poster because they said at the top of their post that yes, they did in fact break up with him, which, oh my gosh, that is the best outcome in my opinion because your boyfriend absolutely was cheating on you. You simply can't tell me otherwise. Not to mention the fact that he's literally slept with everybody from his work, and now one of them lives in the house who he probably also slept with. So good for you for making the right choice because this was incredibly sketchy.
Lunch thief steals my sushi at work, so I use a black light to expose him. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This took place while I was a teen fresh out of university working directly under an engineer. The office I was doing my 4,000 hours in was a fairly large 5 floors of an office building, a Toronto construction firm. Well, I was lazy and always picked up a lunch from Whole Foods, usually sushi on my way to work. My floor had its own break room and fridge, and for the first 6 months, nothing ever went missing, until we got a batch of university office interns, paid interns. Then, wouldn't you know it, lunches would go missing, and it wasn't just mine. Any lunch in store packaging was gone, if there was a name on it or not. Well, after 2 weeks of our lunches just walking away, we're all getting peeved. You don't mess with my salmon sashimi. One of the engineers comes up with an idea and asks everyone to throw in a couple of dollars to solve this problem. The following week, he sends a text message to the store-bought lunch people to meet in the break room before work, and sent a text to everyone in the office to not touch any of the packaged lunches. We meet up and he hands us this little spray bottle to spray the packaging. It was this black light reactive spray. Glows from a black light, but completely undetectable. Lunch rolls around and guess what? Every single packaged lunch is gone. And this guy brings out the black light and starts looking for fingerprints. He found them on the door down the hall to the elevator. Now imagine 5 of the nerdiest engineers you've ever seen going down a hallway with a black light like something out of a discount CSI. Well, there's fingerprints everywhere. Right up to the elevator, on the buttons, down to the 2nd floor. While we were making our way down the hallway at this time, I figured some of the interns were nicking our lunches. But I was wrong. We followed it right to the head of the sales department's desk. And, well, we demanded to see his hands. And they were glowing like crazy. Not to mention, he had touched his face, so there was this glowing mess covering his face. The guy knew he was caught, and we made an agreement not to go to HR, but we would get a picture of the evidence. And pizza for our floor every Friday for 2 months. We stayed extra that day to print out the glowing mess that was his face. We printed at least 100 of them with the caption, "Dirty, dirty lunch thief." Those things went up everywhere. The bathrooms, all the entryways of the building, every office door and desk in sight. Needless to say, that jerk stopped stealing lunches, and I was able to eat my sushi in peace. Wow, you guys went the full 9 yards to try and catch this dude, eh? This is really thinking outside the box. I don't think a whole lot of people would come to this conclusion for a problem like this. But hey, it worked out for you guys. A naked man in the shower saved my life. Let me tell the story. I was feeling dizzy before a workout as I was a bit dehydrated. This is important for later. I usually bring some liquid, but forgot to that day. Usually I go to McDonald's and grab a large unsweetened iced tea for the gym. Better than coffee, and it wakes me up for the workout and it's only $1. This was mistake number 1. Oh well. In my slight lightheadedness, I think I'll have some water at the fountain in the middle of the workout. This was mistake number 2. After an hour on the treadmill, my throat starts to stick a little. I had my mask on and was doing a slow jog, 7 miles per hour. Just enough for me to be able to breathe through the mask just fine, and didn't have to remove it once in the hour I had spent on the machine. I hop off the treadmill and the first feeling I get is the rush of blood running away from my brain. It only lasted a second, but anyone getting up too fast from sitting or squatting a long time will know the feeling. It's also the same feeling as the dizziness of being drunk. That was a good time for that drink, but because of COVID, the fountains were turned off, and you're supposed to bring your own water. Oops. Okay, whatever, I'll power through this. There's only the lightweights I was going to do anyway. It'll be fine. This was mistake number 3. Yep, I go through with my hour of lightweights, and at the end, my shirt was very sweaty, and I'm feeling very dizzy and lightheaded at the end, but it passes. Anyone who's had that feeling would know it's actually a little euphoric, and and a great end is the shower. This is where I should point out that I'm in terrible COVID condition. My belly is huge, and my mother pointed out that I looked pregnant when I went to open the fridge door without my shirt on. This is also important. In my dehydration, I'm not drunk dizzy, but impaired enough to forget to take off my shirt and mask as I take my towel with me to the shower. There's no one else taking a shower, as it was a pretty early workout, so I head to my usual stall by habit, which is close to the entrance. I turn on the shower and let the water hit my chest. The feeling is amazing. This is where everything goes wrong. I'm still in my sweaty shirt and decide I should take it off, with my mask still on. The shirt sticks to my skin and rotund belly, making it very hard to remove. Now both my arms are up and the shirt is stuck to my face and mask, with the water now filtering through the shirt and mask, blocking my nostrils. This is where I find out how horrible waterboarding is. The wet mask and shirt make it instantly extremely hard to breathe as the nostrils are blocked. Instinct says use the mouth, which is similarly blocked, and I start to hyperventilate, which sends water into the lungs and causes me to cough and panic. I take a few steps back with my arms still up and spin around to get away from the water. Two very strong arms lift up my shirt and my mask with it, whereupon I'm confronted with two ebony pecs even the Rock would be envious of. Just below these godly pecs are the abs of Hercules that put my pear-shaped physique to shame. That's when the water decides to leave the lungs and I start hacking. Connected to this torso of discipline and genes of envy, I'm hacking spittle onto the largest dong I've ever seen this side of adult entertainment. A glorious foot long, inches from my face, where previously only a Subway sandwich has been. The manliest of hands pat my back like I'm a baby being burped. Through tears and embarrassment, we both realize that a third person has just walked in. Me bent over coughing in the heat from his gigantic schlong caressing my face. Said person turns on his heels and nopes out. I utter some thanks to my savior, and we both decide it's best not to talk about it and finish our showers. Mine was the shortest shower I've ever had, and I rushed to dress and possibly find the previously third person to hopefully explain, but he was gone by then. On my way out, my Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, whose Johnson I was inches away from, is done with his shower. He has a look of don't say anything, but I spend a few minutes with him thanking him as he's getting dried and dressed. He seems cool with it, I think, but I haven't been back in weeks. I just feel like such a jerk. Hey, you know what? Naked or not, thank God that guy was there. Imagine if no one was around. That could have gone a whole lot worse. I don't think you really care about whether you're naked or not in that moment. Instinct takes over when you see someone in distress, and you do what you need to save them if you can. And yeah, of course you're gonna feel like a tool. And I'm sure he understands that you do. But just move forward from there. It was an awkward encounter. He did what any other person would have done, I'm sure. You don't need to make it weird moving forward. The idiocy of my entitled in-laws put my baby in the hospital. I just got inspired to write about my crazy mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I hope this can be used as a cautionary tale. This was back in 2010. We had to live with my husband's family for a while. It was my sister-in-law's house, but we lived with her, her daughter, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and brother-in-law. When my son was 5 months old, my niece got violently ill one night and kept throwing up. Obviously, I decided to keep the baby away from the family so he wouldn't get sick. They didn't like that, especially my mother-in-law and father-in-law, who kept whining and complaining that I was keeping their precious grandson away. Even after explaining that I didn't want my niece to get him sick, I gave in because I was tired of hearing them complain literally all day on the condition that this niece stays in her room the whole time and they wash first. I'm aware that this is where I messed up. I had to use the bathroom and was only gone for a few minutes. When I came back, my niece was on the couch holding my son, snot dribbling from her nose, throat scratchy, with father-in-law telling her, "Give your cousin a big kiss," which she does, right on the lips. I freaked freak out and snatch my baby and lock us in the bathroom so I can wash him. The whole time, mother and father-in-law were at the door telling me that I'm overreacting and that sharing germs builds immunity and other BS. Of course, the next morning he has a high fever and he's really lethargic. I tell the in-laws that I want to take him to the hospital, but my sister-in-law was adamant that it wasn't that bad and that I should make an appointment with his pediatrician instead. I didn't have a license or a car, so I had to rely on other people. Like an idiot, I listened to her because I thought she was on my side and knew more because her child is older. I made an appointment for that afternoon. I get there and the doctor took one look at him and told me to take him to the hospital, which was 1 block away, and said he would call ahead so they would be expecting me. He was admitted as soon as we walked in the door. They told me I was lucky and that if I'd waited any longer, my baby wouldn't have lasted until the next day. His lungs were filling up with mucus and he couldn't breathe. He had to be hooked up to an oxygen tank and they had to vacuum suction the mucus out every hour. We spent a week in the hospital and he made a full recovery. Of course, the in-laws fully blamed me, mother-in-law especially, but the others more or less agreed with her. She said my son got sick because I was dirty for having a child out of wedlock and that I was a bad mother. My husband was furious and told her off, but that woman has the worst case of selective hearing I've ever seen. I've never fully trusted that jerk ever again. This is a very serious thing. You don't mess around when it comes to germs and babies. If someone's that sick, you keep the baby away. And you absolutely do not kiss the baby on the mouth. That's literally the worst thing you could do. I wouldn't think that this is something that would need to be explained to people who are seasoned parents. I don't have kids. I know this. Kids are way more susceptible to this kind of thing. You just don't take the risk. Today, I accidentally kissed my deaf friend. I'm a 22-year-old male. I met a girl through a mutual friend. We've known each other for roughly a year, but haven't spent time alone yet, always in a group. She's very sweet and pretty. She's not completely deaf. She can still hear a bit, with the help of hearing aids. Yesterday, we met up with our mutual friends, and we were having a barbecue. Later on, we ran out of snacks, so the other two went to the grocery store. We were alone in the yard and chatting. At this point, I noticed that she kept staring at my lips, so I thought to myself, does she want to kiss me? Since she didn't stop staring, I thought that it was obvious. This time, I'm not gonna miss a hint. I leaned in to give her a kiss. I mean, she did kinda kiss me back, but afterwards, it was like dead silence. Thank God the other two arrived a few minutes later. The rest of the evening was super awkward between us. Later, as she left, I told the other two friends that I had kissed her because she kept staring at my lips. They started laughing, saying, "Of course she's staring at your lips, she's lip reading." Man, I totally forgot that deaf people also use lip reading to communicate, and since she's never actually done that before, I didn't take that into consideration. This will definitely be one of those moments that'll make me stay up at night and cringe. Plus, I probably ruined the friendship. I just feel like the biggest jerk. Look, you kind of were a jerk, but it wasn't intentional. I do think it was a harmless mistake. I'm sure if you were to sit down and talk to her and explain the situation and what happened, that she would totally understand and probably just find it funny. If she really is a nice person and you want this friendship to continue, just address it. The longer you let this awkwardness go on between you guys, the more that's going to become the norm of your relationship. Just rip that band-aid off. My boyfriend decided to surprise me with a dinner with my parents, who absolutely ruined my childhood. I, 24-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend Derek, 27-year-old male, for 3 years. We met through mutual friends and hit it off rather quickly. After a year of knowing each other, we started dating. Derek firmly believes that everyone deserves a second chance and to let bygones be bygones. I adore him for being a good-hearted person, but also feel pressured to forgive people like how he does. I was never close with my parents due to the fact that I was an oopsies baby and my parents decided to keep me. It was made clear I was an outsider and didn't belong. They already had their dream family, but I was just there to ruin it. My mom would comment on my weight, and my sister started doing it too. My dad would ignore me, and my brother would bully me to the point that I felt scared to leave my room. They would leave me at my grandparents' house when I went on vacation, and wouldn't pick me up until 2 weeks after they came back. Once I turned 18, they kicked me out, and we've been low contact ever since. My boyfriend asked about meeting my family, so I explained my childhood, which was a hard conversation to have, since I wanted to just forget about them. He comforted me while I cried on his shoulder, and he seemingly understood. I thought that was final, until 4 months go by and he randomly asks me to go on a date with him to this fancy restaurant. I was honestly so excited, since it's been a while since we went on a real date, so I quickly got dressed. We arrived at the dinner place at 8 p.m. and were seated at a party-sized table. I was a little confused, but brushed it off. That is, until my parents and siblings walked in. That's when I knew something was definitely off. They came to the table we were at and said hello to us. Turns out my boyfriend was secretly communicating with them, trying to heal the past and fix our relationship. I felt so uncomfortable that I quickly got up and walked out. My boyfriend followed along and asked me to come back inside, saying I should let bygones be bygones. In a fit of rage, I told him off, and how it wasn't his place to fix a relationship that isn't his to fix. I stormed off to the car and drove off. Him and my parents were blowing up my phone, calling me childish and unreasonable. I ended up turning off my phone and packed my things to stay with a friend. I told another friend of mine about the situation and they said I was extremely childish. Now I'm wondering if I was in the right or wrong for leaving. I still haven't replied to his messages or calls. So am I the jerk? I really don't think it's fair of him to force this on you. I get that he has good intentions, but not everyone is able to just let things go that way, especially when there could be some serious pain and damage done. It's great that he wants to help fix this relationship, but it needs to be a decision that you make, not him. And to just spring it on you is really not cool. Don't worry, you're not the jerk in this situation. I understand you might have a hard time calling your boyfriend a jerk for what he's doing, considering it's coming from a good place, but trust me, he's the one being the jerk. I told my brother his wife isn't allowed over anymore after I caught her trash talking me behind my back. So my brother has been with his wife for 6 years. She's always been an amazing sister-in-law and aunt to my babies. But recently, she was unaware I was on my way to my brother's house and happened to be meeting with her own mother at the same time. I always just walk in the house through the garage when I come over, but this time they were sitting on the back porch, and I overheard her tell her mother that she thought I was a bad mother for vaccinating my children, and that at the end of the day, I'll be sorry. She also stated she felt uncomfortable around us. I felt this was an attack on me and my family. I immediately left and called my brother to tell him what happened, and that I wasn't comfortable with her coming to my house anymore, which is where we're hosting family day every weekend. He proceeded to tell me that what she said to her mother was in confidence, and that I shouldn't have been sneaking around the house. I'm completely floored, and I have no idea how to respond. Am I the jerk here? This is an unfortunate situation to be in. It sounds like she is a good sister-in-law and aunt, as you said earlier, but what you overheard is hard to overlook. Maybe if you guys sat down and had a conversation, you can come to some kind of mutual understanding that perception of you is very hurtful, and I don't understand why she has it to begin with. Also, your sister-in-law has just painted a very ugly picture of herself, so maybe she needs to take into consideration that she isn't the most desirable person to be around right now either. Everyone in my family seems to have forgotten that my dead uncle was a massive jerk. So I felt the need to remind them. I, 29-year-old male, was recently invited to a memorial for my uncle who passed in a tragic accident many years ago. I won't get into many details as his death was very public with some national coverage, but needless to say, it was a horrific event. My family now holds a yearly memorial for his children and wife who he left behind. While I wholly support his wife and children and feel terrible for them, he was a horrible person while he was alive. Not only was he verbally abusive and extremely controlling, but he was also a serial cheater who couldn't keep it in his pants. His cheating and abusive tendencies were more or less an open secret, and most people did their best to avoid him at family gatherings. However, as soon as he passed away, it was like my entire family completely forgot who he was. He became a perfect martyr that everybody remembered fondly, and I was scolded by my family anytime I would imply otherwise. While I always avoid these yearly memorials, my mother and father have been attempting to guilt trip me into attending the next one, and we ended up having a heated argument during a recent family gathering where my extended family was present. The fight began like this. My mom: "OP, can you please come to Uncle's memorial on this day? You never attend anymore, and you need to be supportive of your aunt and your cousins." Mom, I already told you, I have an important meeting that night that I can't miss. I'll visit them next month when I'm in town. OP, you're disrespecting your family, and more importantly, you're disrespecting your uncle. Every year that you're not present, you're spitting on his legacy. You should be ashamed of yourself. Mom, I already told you, I can't come. Please just drop it. At this point, my mom starts crying and my father starts yelling at me. OP, I raised you to have more respect for your family. What's wrong with you? I've had this conversation with my parents yearly, and it almost always ends with me apologizing to my mom and doing something special to make it up. I'm not sure why, but this particular year, something in me just snapped. I said, I'm tired of everyone in this family treating him like he was a good person. He was a jerk, and I'm not sad he's gone. You want to talk about disrespecting his legacy? His legacy as an abusive husband and a serial cheater? Why does everyone in this stupid family pretend like he had even one good quality? All of you talked crap about him constantly and said he didn't deserve his wife or kids. Luckily, now he has neither, and his life insurance is paying for the kids' college funds. Explain to me how that isn't a happy ending. At this point, my other uncles and aunts got up from the table to comfort my mother, who was sobbing, and I left before anyone could stop me. My younger family members agree with what I said, but all my uncles and aunts think I was wrong for speaking about my dead uncle like that. So, am I the jerk? I don't think you're a jerk at all. It sounds like he was a massive jerk. You have your time to mourn after he passed. It's still a loss. Obviously, people still cared about him. But if it's this far on, even if he died tragically, you can't sit there and pretend that he was a good person. I agree with what you said, and that this just sounds like a happy ending for everyone involved. Unfortunately, no one else wants to be the one to say it, and apparently some can't handle hearing it either. Karen demands a 4th floor room in our 3-story hotel, so I take her to the rooftop with her luggage in tow. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Several years ago, I worked front desk at a privately owned hotel, non-chain, that had been a Days Inn 5 years prior. The only way to book a reservation was to talk to the front desk staff. No online reservations, no third-party reservations. About 50% of our rooms were sold to walk-ins. One holiday weekend, we're booked full. Our elderly elevator is having some trouble with all the traffic and spooking guests, so I close it and call for a repairman. But it's 10 o'clock at night, so I'm not expecting anybody until the next morning. All of our guests are checked in. Our accessibility rooms are on the same floor as the lobby. So I'll just help out anyone with their luggage if they have more and put up a sign saying so. In walks a woman I don't recognize from check-in. She plops a piece of paper in front of me and then goes and gets lots of luggage. The paper shows her with a reservation at Days Inn at this address for tonight, for a 10th of the price that we were selling before being fully booked. She comes back to the desk, likely thinking that I've been checking her in all this time. I told her, I regret to inform you that we don't accept third-party reservations. We're unfortunately already booked for the night. I have a reservation, it's right there. I paid good money for it. Ma'am, I believe you. Unfortunately, you're not in our system because we don't take third-party reservations. They sold it to you fraudulently. You're just trying to steal my money. I have a confirmation number right there. I handed it to you. Yes, ma'am. You handed me a reservation to a Days Inn. We're a different hotel, I say, gesturing towards the sign. All of the signage inside and outside the building is correct. Also, this is for a 4th floor room. We only have 3 floors. I stayed at this Days Inn last year on the 4th floor. This argument continues for a while with me keeping my cool, informing her that we're all booked. All of our rooms are full, and I'm insisting that we don't have a 4th floor. We're not a days in, and we don't take third-party reservations. Eventually, she screams at me that I'm gonna take her to her room on the 4th floor that she paid for right now. I don't respond. I just stare at her with a blank face until she slaps the desk and screams, "Now!" I don't mime getting a room key, but I do grab my huge keyring and we both load ourselves up with her excessive luggage and climb the stairs. Once we get to the 3rd floor, I gesture to the 3rd floor sign and tell her it's the 3rd floor. I then use my maintenance key to unlock the maintenance stairs, which are not lit, and she trudges up behind me, not saying anything. I open the door to the tarred roof and walk outside. And here is the 4th floor. I hope it's as nice as the last time you stayed here. I drop her luggage right there and go back downstairs to the front desk. Honestly, had she been nicer to me, I would have tried to help get her a room at a different hotel and submit documentation to try and help her get a refund or chargeback from the third party. But since she screamed at me, I left her and her luggage on the roof. Plus, she insisted she had stayed on the 4th floor. So that's what that jerk got. I love when people must know that they're wrong, but they continue to try and argue anyway. Like, how's she gonna sit there and tell you that there's an extra floor on the building? Like, you would just make up the fact that there's no 4th floor. Surely once you're going up the stairs and have to open a maintenance door to get to the next floor, she would understand that she's either made a mistake or been caught in her lie. Either way, she just continues to go along with it and doesn't even bother to speak up and admit that she was wrong. At some point, she must have gone back down the stairs and snuck out a door or something. No way she came back to admit defeat. I accidentally enjoyed my scalp massage a bit too much. I get my hair cut at Sports Clip every first weekend of the month like clockwork. I enjoy them because of the MVP hot towel scalp massage stuff they do in the back, and I've never had a bad haircut from them. This isn't an ad for Sports Clip, mind you, because I don't think I can ever go back. If you've ever been to a Sports Clip, you know they're very male catering. Sports on the TV, all the stylists are generally young and attractive and wearing booty-hugging leggings, and by this point you've figured out where this story's probably going. So we do my haircut. Looks great, I'm happy with it. Time to head back for the triple MVP. I lay back in the chair and she turns the massage on. She then adds the hot towel and starts rubbing my face. Then she starts in with the shampoo, and boy does it feel good. I've always been a sucker for a woman massaging my hair. The chair is vibrating, my scalp is tingling. Now, fellas, let's take a moment here to commiserate on that moment when you know what is about to happen and you can't do anything to stop it. Yes, indeed. By the end of round 1, the Ravens on ESPN on the giant TV aren't the only ones facing stiff competition. Let's be clear, I didn't plan on doing much with my day. I'm wearing an old t-shirt and gym shorts. I'm hiding nothing. Now, I might not have that much to hide, but nevertheless, my situation is plain. I have one and only one hope here. That shampoo cave in the back is always pretty dark at Sports Clip. Maybe she'll be distracted by the work, I'll get to Deflategate, and all will be well. Well friends, my predicament continues as I realize I signed up for the triple MVP. I've got 2 more hot towels, a round of conditioner, and a scalp treatment in my future. For the next 10 minutes, I'm tent camping outside the stadium and just praying for this to end. Finally, we're all done, and I pray I made it out of the woods safely. Things are starting to calm down. Maybe we won't get a flag on the play here. My stylist then hands me the towel for my hair and says, "Why don't you take a moment to relax and then come back to my chair?" God in heaven, that settles in. I will now be the giggling topic of the break room tonight. I proverbially and partially literally tuck my tail between my legs, go sit in the chair for her to trim up some loose hairs, pray the hot towel is the reason my face is bright red, and pay and run away. I don't know if I can ever return to this Sports Clip again. I feel as if my face will be on a poster in the back like a hardened criminal. I just feel like such a jerk. I don't really know what to tell you on this one, my friend. I can't say I've ever been in a similar situation myself. All I can say is it wasn't intended and your body just reacted in a way that you couldn't control. You were feeling good and it happened. I think you've made the right call in that you just don't go back there again. My manager denied me my holiday pay, telling me to read my contract. So I did. And I found something pretty interesting. Back in 2015, I worked for a pretty dismal call center. It was an outsourced center that handled customer support for a lot of UK retailers. Staff turnover was real high, with the vast majority being on temporary contracts, with the promise of a permanent contract being hung over people's heads to make them suck up being treated like crap. After working there for about 2 years, in late February of that year, I was offered a permanent contract because they wanted to put me on their team leader program. The pay was slightly better, the job security was better, and the only major difference was how holidays were handled. People on temporary contracts were paid for any unused holidays at the end of the working year in April. People on permanent contracts had to use their holidays or they'd lose them. I had just over 3 weeks holidays saved up, so the day I accepted, I booked 3 weeks off in March so I wouldn't lose them in April. March rolled around and my manager told me that my holidays had been refused. I said that's fine as long as they pay me for them. And he replied that no, if you don't use your holidays, you lose them. I said that I was trying to use my holidays and they weren't letting me. He shrugged and said it's the duty of the employee to manage their holiday time wisely and that I should read my contract. Despite the fact that I had only gotten that contract 3 weeks earlier and the holidays worked differently. Understandably annoyed, that evening I went home and read my contract from beginning to end and discovered my manager had overlooked one crucial part of the paperwork. The contract clearly stated I had to give a week's notice, and that any holidays not used would be paid to any leaving employee in full on their last paycheck. The next day, I came into work and announced I would be quitting unless paid my holidays, or allowed to take the time off, and if they accepted my notice, then to be sure my holidays was included in my final paycheck. My boss asked me if I was really going to quit over this, and I replied, was he really going to lose one of his most reliable employees over this? He wouldn't budge. I assume he thought I was bluffing. So I handed in my notice, and on my leaving interview with my manager's manager, made sure to explain exactly why I was leaving. And yes, my final paycheck did include my unused holiday days. I really hope that jerk realizes it wasn't worth it. Seriously though, what's with managers having a power trip like this? You don't seem to have anything to gain. I don't know if you're held accountable for how much you end up paying out to your employees. Maybe you get a bonus at the end of the year based on how much you saved, but clearly this wasn't worth it. In a crappy job like a call center, you found someone who stuck around for 2 years, and you're gonna lose them over this? Come on. You really think that they can't find a job in some other crappy call center? This isn't a job with golden handcuffs or anything. This is an easily replaceable job. That employee, not so easily replaceable. Today, I peed on a cat. Today, we adopted an adorable love bug of a 6-month-old kitten. She's very chill and comfortable with humans, raised by a single woman who bottle fed her because the kittens were abandoned. We got the kitten set up in the bathroom first to ease her into new surroundings. I had to pee, but I held it for a couple hours longer, like you do as a guy. Finally, once we moved her into the house and she was exploring, I took my opportunity, raised the seat, and let loose with relief. Suddenly, a little gray head popped up in my periphery and she leaped up, and her head dove straight into the toilet bowl, golden stream and all. I scooped her up with one hand and managed to finish up quickly with the other. A bit embarrassed over the situation. Fortunately, only a bit of the back of her head caught the stream. Meanwhile, the cat was totally unfazed, even as I used water from the tap to clean her up. I went into the living room and announced, well, achievement unlocked. Peed on a cat. Hours later, kitten is totally fine. Has been falling asleep on her back while I give her tummy and head rubs. I still feel like a jerk though. Look, accidents are accidents. You clearly didn't intend to do this. The cat was just trying to investigate what was going on, I'm sure. It doesn't know any better. Hopefully it learned its lesson though. I got a nice reward for returning a diamond ring I found, but now my family thinks I should share it. My grandfather loved to use his metal detector whenever we went to the beach. He would spend hours just walking on the sand and finding coins and stuff. Every once in a while he would find jewelry, but what I remember most is him helping someone out. It was the end of the day, and there was a family digging through the sand, obviously looking for something. My grandfather went over to see if he could help. They had lost their car keys. He went back to our car and unpacked his metal detector and found them in about 5 minutes. The family tried to give him money, but he refused. I got into the hobby, but not as seriously as him. When my family gets to the beach, I want to swim and have fun, but I do usually spend at least an hour looking for stuff with the detector my grandpa gave me. It reminds me of hanging out with him. None of the other grandkids ever showed any interest, so I'm the only one who got a detector. They all think I'm kind of a dork. My family got together for Memorial Day and I spent an hour on the beach with my detector. I hit the jackpot. I found a diamond ring. It was huge. I put it in my pocket and kept going. While I was having some food, a guy came up to us and asked me if I was the kid with the gadget. I said I was. He asked if I found a ring. I said that I had. He said it was his wife's. My dad asked him to prove it. He pulled up a picture of the ring I found from his wedding the day before. I gave it back to him and he freaked out. I guess it was a family heirloom and worth a lot of money. But mostly, his wife was literally puking her guts out over losing it. He pulled out his wallet and gave me $500. I said no, it wasn't necessary, but he insisted. He gave it to me and walked away. My cousins and sister think I should share the reward, but I didn't think that was fair, so I said no. They think I'm being greedy. My dad said I should share, but it was my choice. My mom said her dad would be proud of me for trying to not take a reward, but that I deserved it. Am I being a jerk by not sharing? Honestly, I think that's your money. You found something that was very valuable to someone else, and they chose to reward you for it. No one else was involved in this. That's your money to do with what you will. They had no part in the process of finding or returning it. As far as I'm concerned, you're not obligated to share. I accidentally promised my nephew a Lego set without knowing it was $700. My nephew is 10 and he's really into Lego ninjas. About 2 months ago, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he said he wanted something about a Lego ninja temple. I figured at most it would be $20, so I said sure, I'd definitely get it for him. He texted me a week later with the actual name, and this thing was well over $700 with tax on Amazon. I have a great job in machine parts sales, but I couldn't justify spending that. So I got him a toy ninja playset with plastic weapons complete with like a mask, which I thought was cool. Well, I guess I didn't realize that he has 2 months to tell his friends he was getting his set, so he was really disappointed today. My sister flipped her lid on me and said maybe I should have communicated with her about not being able to buy the set. I said I had no idea it was $700, and she said she would have been equally as upset had I bought him the $700 set. I said I felt like it was a no-win. She said, "No, you put yourself in a no-win situation by not talking with me so I could do some expectation management. And why didn't you get him even a small Lego? Did you buy that ninja set at a truck stop?" I said I actually did because I ran out of time this week. She said that everything about this makes her embarrassed that I'm her brother and peeved off for her son. She didn't call me a jerk, but she might as well have. Am I a jerk? I don't think you're a jerk, but I do think you could have managed this situation a little better. I agreed that you should have communicated with mom to kind of let her know that this wasn't going to be able to happen. We all know what it's like to be a kid and be expecting that one present. And when you're told you're gonna get it, you're gonna be bragging about it and getting hyped for a while until it comes. I feel like this is kind of just the uncle overlooking the situation. You didn't do it intentionally. You should have at least gotten a smaller Lego set. But I do agree, Lego prices have gotten out of control. I came out at my sister's engagement party and have been cut off by my family as a result. I'm a 23-year-old female. My sister, 25, recently got engaged to her fiance, 26-year-old male, after they'd been dating for about a year. Their engagement party was basically a dinner with friends and close relatives, and my sister went all out on the food. To her, marriage is a huge deal, and she's had her whole wedding and married life planned out since we were kids. I've never felt the same excitement for weddings and kids and such things, even though I do want it at some point. And since I'm a lesbian in a homophobic family, I long ago accepted that a big fancy wedding with my father walking me down the aisle isn't part of the plan. This doesn't sadden me much, but my sister, who's the only one in my family who knew about my sexuality, has been convinced that I'm jealous of her since she started dating her fiance. The dinner started out great, but after the main course, my family and relatives started asking about my dating life. It was pretty harmless questions at first, such as, "When are you getting a boyfriend?" And why aren't you dating? I saw that boy hitting on you just yesterday. It annoyed me, but my sister seemed even more annoyed. After dessert, when the alcohol started kicking in, the questions got a little out of hand. My mom said, "I can't believe your sister got engaged first. You've always been more social." And my grandma commented on that I was the more attractive sister. My sister obviously got hurt by this, and I caught her crying in the bathroom at one point. I tried to talk to her, but all she said was, "Happy, you've made my engagement all about you," and then avoided me for the rest of the party. So this is the part where I might have been the bad guy. After my aunt asked when I would get a boyfriend for the millionth time and I'd had my millionth glass of wine, I told her that I'd never get a boyfriend, but when I got a girlfriend, she'd be the first to know. I then stormed out of the apartment, accidentally knocking a glass over, and took a cab home. My phone immediately started blowing up, but I turned notifications off and went straight to bed. One of mine and my sister's mutual friends, who was at the party, told me the next day that a wild discussion about what I said to my aunt was held, and that the party was then cut short. My sister locked herself in her room crying, and everyone went home. I've now been blocked by most of my family and relatives. My sister sent me a nasty text about how me coming out at her party stole her thunder, and my mother no longer considers me family. I'm not going to try to make up excuses for my behavior, because I definitely could have been a more supporting sister, but I just wanted to know, am I the jerk? Okay, well, I'll start off by saying at least you seem to understand where you went wrong here. I get that it was getting excessive and annoying, and a lot of stuff was being thrown at you during this night. But I don't think that this was the best time to have this conversation. You seem to already have been aware of how this was probably going to go. This wasn't the place. That being said, I don't think it's fair at all how your family is treating you. Your sister was blaming you for taking the attention before you even actually took the attention. It wasn't your fault that all these comments were being made your way. And I would feel pretty uncomfortable in your situation too. I completely understand why you lashed out, especially after a few drinks. I can't really blame you for what you did, but it was a jerk move. Are you the jerk in this situation? I don't really think so. There seems to be a whole lot of jerks involved in this one. But I think the fact that you acknowledge your behavior and that you could have been a more supportive sister is a huge thing. It doesn't seem like anyone else in your family is taking that approach right now. I have to give you credit for at least being a bigger person than the rest of them. I do hope that once the initial shock of the situation has passed and everyone's calmed down a bit, that you can move forward from here. Your sister seems to be the only person in your family that supports your sexuality. I'd hate to hear that you lost her too. I told my new wife I didn't care if she cheated on me. Needless to say, I think I really screwed up. I told my wife I didn't mind if she cheated on me. She was understandably shocked and confused. She asked me multiple times about this to try to understand what I meant. I took it as her being interested in opening up our relationship. I had no interest in other women, but I wanted her to be happy and have fun. So I sent her a list of boundaries. Example, no babies or STDs, and either of us could close and go back to monogamy at any time. Things like that. I further screwed up by saying she didn't have to tell me what she did. She told me a guy at work had given her his number and she asked if it was okay to talk to him. And I said yes. Over the past few months, she got closer and closer to him. I was struggling at work and wasn't able to provide her the attention she needed. She came to me multiple times asking if I was okay with this. I now know she was trying to see if I cared about her. Eventually, they did it, and she came to me and said she felt so guilty. I was upset, but unwilling to admit that to her, and I told her not to worry and it wasn't my fault if she felt guilty for it. We had been slowly growing apart, and I was pushing her away and self-sabotaging our relationship. I realized I was letting the most wonderful person in my life slip away, so I started to try and save what we had. I cooked her favorite meals, kept the house clean, did errands for her, and did her chores. She works a lot more than I do. I know expectations for men in relationships are low, and I thought I was a good man because I never forgot her birthday, our anniversary, or a holiday. I would always make those days special. I would try to be home and ready with food whenever she got back from work. but I didn't sit her down and talk about my feelings. She told me she wanted to meet with a college friend of hers out of state. I knew her friend was a nice person, and it would be good for her to have a girls' weekend away from all this mess. She told her mom this too after she asked to visit, so I assumed she really needed that. 1 week before her trip, she went to lunch with him, and I was so jealous and hurt. I told her I didn't care if she came home that night. That moment proved to be the final nail in the coffin. The next day, I finally talked to her about my feelings. I begged her to close the relationship. She told me that for a long time she felt no emotional connection to me, and that her attraction to me had gone away, and that when I told her not to come home, something had broken inside of her. She said she was willing to try. I finally listened to her about our issues and took steps to communicate more, talk to her, cuddle more, and let her know about my feelings. She then told me her friend had asked her to leave me, and he would wait a year until the divorce or separation happened. After, I said at least she would have a nice weekend away with her college friend. She then said she had lied and revealed that the trip was with him and not with her friend. I begged her not to go, offered to pay any cancellation penalties, but she said she made a promise and was going to keep it. She went and came back, but she isn't the same. I asked her to stop seeing him and talking to him. She said she would try, but some days she comes home a little late and isn't hungry enough to eat the dinner I made for her, and I know she was with him. On our anniversary, I went all out. I got her flowers that matched our wedding colors, I made a photo album of our wedding and honeymoon, and I wrote her a list of vows on how I would continue to be a better husband. I used some of the decorations from our wedding to decorate a room just like our wedding reception for her, and played our first dance song and danced with her. I cried my eyes out, but she doesn't have any more tears left for me. I know every nice and romantic thing I do just hurts her more and adds to the guilt she feels. We have our first counseling session this week. I'm not sure if this is going to help us or it's just going to help me cope with divorce. I feel like such a failure. Well, my friend, I hate to say it, but you definitely screwed the pooch on this one. It sounds like when you initially made this proposal that it was coming from a genuine good place. It seems like you genuinely thought that this might be best for her, and that's what you wanted. But you didn't take into consideration what was going to be best for you, or the two of you as a couple. This was a disaster from the beginning. Unless this was already the kind of relationship you guys had before getting married, I don't see how this could make things better. You sound like you really love her, and I honestly do hope that you guys are able to work this out. But you literally opened the door for this. You offered it to her. You can't be upset that she took it. I wish you all the best, my friend. My uncle seems to think it's funny to mess with me, so I recorded him for proof. My uncle thinks it's funny to get me to run back and forth between the pool and the kitchen getting him drinks. He'll say he wants a Coke, then claim he asked for a beer, then ask where his Coke is. He usually blames it on us darn millennials always being on our phones and not paying attention. For whatever reason, my parents don't tell him to screw off. It started getting old a long time ago, and I usually deal with it by making myself scarce when he's over. He was visiting over Memorial Day weekend and he caught me. He asked for a Coke, so I brought him a Coke. Then he said he had asked for a beer. So I pulled out my phone and played the video I had recorded of him asking for a Coke. Like most darn millennials, I was on my phone when he asked, and I knew what was coming, so I recorded his request. He asked me for a beer because that's what he really wanted. So I told him I'd be happy to get him a beer after he finished his drink, because unlike his boomer generation, I don't waste stuff for the fun of it. He got all huffy saying he was just joking around. The next time he asked me for a drink, my phone was in my pocket. So I pulled it out and said I didn't remember what he'd asked and for him to please repeat himself. He said he would just get his own drinks. I told him that was a great idea. My parents think I was a jerk for being rude to a guest and my elder. I thought I was just making sure he got what he asked for. No, you weren't being the jerk. He knew he was being a jerk. He's just messing with you. It'd be one thing if he did it once or twice, but if he's doing this all the time, every time he's over, yeah, it's gonna get old. Honestly, I think you handled this in about the best way you possibly could have. You messed with him right back. There's not a whole lot he can say when you have a video of what he asked for. If he wants to play games, we can play games. The service tech told my sister that she'd have to call the CEO if she wanted a loaner vehicle. So she did just that. This didn't happen to me, but it happened to my sister. I felt inspired to share with you since she's not a Redditor. We've had a bunch of family issues lately. Mom is disabled from a stroke, and my dad had a traumatic brain injury a month ago, leaving my sister as the primary caretaker of her household and my parents. I live about 2 hours away and help when I can. My sister has one car that can haul her family of her husband and 3 kids, and she relies on it every day to take the kiddos to school and pick them up. Sunday night, she was coming back from getting groceries when her car just died. Like dead. Not starting. If it did start, it would run for about 3 seconds and clip off. Her husband and a nice policeman pushed it off the highway, and later they had it towed back to her house. Monday, she calls the dealership she bought it from. The truck has about 75,000 miles on it, but it's an older model. When she speaks to the service tech, she asks about a loaner vehicle to get her kids back and forth and take my mom to doctor appointments and such. They told her that they only give loaners to people with vehicles of that year, and the only person who can authorize the loaner is the CEO himself. I guess they thought they could scare my sister into shutting up about it, but they didn't realize they were dealing with a frazzled mama who's been dealing with doctors and hospitals for a month because of my dad's injury. One phone call to the CEO later, she's in his office writing a report about the service tech and signing papers on her loaner vehicle, which the CEO did mention they had 5 or 6 to choose from. He also didn't know about any policy about having to go through him to authorize a loaner. As she was leaving, she heard the CEO on the intercom calling for the service tech to come into his office. Bottom line, don't mess with frazzled mamas who are at the end of their rope wondering how to get their kids to school and her mom to the hospital to visit her dad. She might just do exactly as you suggest. Next time, maybe don't be a jerk. Seriously though, from the development of this story, it sounds like it was completely within this service guy's power to give her a loaner vehicle. Why was he holding back on her? She's clearly someone who needs one. There must have been some kind of misunderstanding here. Surely no one is actually that heartless. I will say though, good on the sister for actually following through. I mean, hey, when you're desperate and you're told that's your only option, you're gonna push that option pretty darn hard. I'm really not surprised that she managed to follow through and get the car, but thank God that she did. I can only imagine how much harder her life would have been for the next while her car was in the shop. My internet provider refused to cancel my service even though I told them it was impossible for them to provide it to me, but they insisted on trying. So when I was living in the city, I had a contract with my internet provider, Rogers for my fellow Canadians. After a year in my apartment, I decided to move in with my then boyfriend, now husband, on a farm on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. So I called to cancel my internet. I need to cancel, I'm moving, then interrupting me. Your services move with you. You signed a contract for X years and it only ends early if we're unable to provide service. You are unable to provide service. I'm moving to a rural area. Not possible. We provide service to many rural communities. What's your new postal code? I give them the postal code. That's for this town. We have service in this town. But I'm not living in that town. That's just my postal address. I'm living on a farm outside of that town. They then repeat the contract speech with an additional offer of an absurd buyout fee if I want to cancel my contract early without cause. I go, fine, you know what? I would love high-speed internet instead of crappy satellite internet. When can you come? The install guy had to call me 3 times from the van, twice because he was lost and a 3rd time because he was stuck in a snowdrift. When he finally arrived, it took him about 30 seconds to determine that there is obviously no infrastructure for high-speed internet. I offered him hot coffee for his trouble coming out, and he happily canceled my service free of charge and accepted my equipment return. This cost Rogers a 3 to 4 hour call out when you count the drive, just to keep one impossible contract. I tried to tell them, but they wanted to be jerks. Sometimes those people on the other end of customer service are absolutely impossible to deal with. They're conditioned to try to keep you no matter what, and if they can, even upsell you and try to get more money out of you. So when you actually need to cancel, they are a complete pain to have to go through. I'm really not surprised that it came to this. I just feel bad for the poor service guy that had to go all the way out there and got stuck in the snow all because some customer service dude just didn't want to let a contract go. My son threw my daughter's feminine hygiene products in the trash, so I threw his Switch in the trash. My daughter is 13 and has been having the worst mood swings with her periods. She's also had really bad cramping and other issues. She got snippy with my son, who's 9, over being loud while playing Fortnite. My son decided that his revenge was to throw away my daughter's feminine hygiene products all in the trash. She went to switch out her pad and he had thrown everything away. I had to make an emergency run to get more pads for my daughter, who was already feeling pretty crappy. I hear my son playing Fortnite on his Switch and laughing with his friends about what he did. I grabbed his Switch and threw it in the trash. He starts crying, and my husband is like, "Really?" and took it out of the trash and told my son he's grounded from the Switch until we decide to give it back to him. My husband locked it up in a safe in our bedroom and swears he won't give it back, but thinks that throwing it away was over the top. I don't think he should get it back, and that it should be given away to someone else, and my husband thinks I'm overreacting. But what our son did was cruel, and he should be punished for it, and the loss of his Switch is punishment. Am I being the jerk here? Honestly, yeah, you are kind of being a jerk. Now, don't get me wrong, I totally understand where you're coming from. I would be furious if I heard that coming out of my son's mouth as well. I agree that what he did was incredibly cruel, but you said it yourself. Him not having his Switch is the punishment. Your husband has taken it away from him. Throwing something expensive in the trash like that on an instinct emotion is probably not a good idea. Once things calm down and he eventually is allowed to have one back, you're just gonna have to buy him a new system. I really do think that your husband probably made the right call on this one. My entitled friend thinks I should pay for half their meals just because I make more money than they do. I'm currently out on vacation with a friend. It was supposed to be a 3-day trip. I usually eat once a day and survive on coffee because of this new diet I'm trying. He likes to eat in fancy places, and every time we go to a breakfast or lunch place, he orders whatever he wants and I just get coffee. When the time comes for the bill, he gets one bill and makes me transfer him half the amount. It's really frustrating when he ordered almost $30 worth of food and I just got a coffee and had to send him $17. I called him out on this today and he called me petty for keeping tabs on small things despite making a 6-figure salary. I don't think I'm being a jerk though. No, just because you make more money doesn't mean you're obligated to pay for his food. If he wants what he wants, he can pay for it. If he wants to eat at fancy restaurants all the time, he can pay for it. It's not a small amount when it adds up over time. He needs to accept responsibility for his own bill. My cheating girlfriend tells me to move out for her new boyfriend, so I gaslight her and ruin her relationship. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I did this to an ex who asked me to move out while she was on a work trip and told me she was coming back with her new boyfriend. We were still together when she left. I got these little noisemakers, battery-powered ones, the size of a quarter, that emit sound at just the right volume that you aren't sure if you really heard it. It was so quiet that you could be sitting in an average-sized room, and while one can barely hear it, the other wouldn't hear a thing. They lasted ages and fit perfectly in light fixtures and in wall outlets. I got a box of 20 of them for like $100 on eBay and got so creative all over the house, her car. I even hid them in a boat her father got her, with a rich family she grew up sailing. Now, these little buggers make a noise at completely random intervals. Could be minutes, could be hours, could be a whole day off. They cycle noises like children laughing, a dying breath as they call it, a whistle, scratching noises, some other ones I can't remember, but you get the idea. It was so unpredictable, it was near impossible for someone to just figure it out. Months go by, I get a new place, get my life back up and running. Now, we had a few friends in common, and one of them I kept up with. They were kinda sour about how she ended things, but they had grown up together and kept the friendship. Loosely talking and catching up on occasion. I never really asked about her, but one day we get to talking and he's wanting to prank some friends on a camping trip, so I tell him about the noisemakers. As I'm telling him about them, he slowly starts making this face like he's gradually losing his mind. He's got this huge grin on his face and asks me, "You put this in all your ex's crap, didn't you?" And when I admit to it, he starts laughing hysterically. Turns out her new boyfriend had only lasted a few months and had left telling her that he couldn't handle whatever was going on with them in their mental states. Turns out for a while they had both heard things, and sometimes only one would hear them, which gave the illusion that something really messed with them was going on in their heads at different times. They couldn't figure it out, and eventually he wanted out completely, and after running down all the crazy list of crap people who were hearing voices would think, ended up believing he had been infected with some brain worm the government was putting in vaccines or something like that. It was amazing. I hadn't expected to hear anything about it. I rode that train for weeks. When it went away, I got another hit of that high. She moved out, told her parents she didn't want the house and to give it to her brother or sell it. Wouldn't tell them why. I always tell people who ask about her that I hold no grudge, and don't tell them the part where I totally screwed with her so bad, I overshot the got her backstage and hit the blissful state of satisfied with my work. My wife knows this story by heart because it's one of her favorite ones to tell. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far, but hey, one jerk move deserves another. I mean, that was a pretty crappy move that she pulled on you, but what you did went above and beyond. I believe you that you didn't intend for it to go this far, but man, I sure would have been happy when I heard the news. Those are better results than you ever could have hoped for. Personally, I don't think you went too far at all. You played a harmless prank that got a little out of control, but not by your own doing by any means. I'm gonna have to look into these little noisemakers. I can think of a few people that deserve this treatment. The mother of one of my son's friends wanted to know why he wasn't invited to the sleepover party, so I laid it out for her. My son just turned 10, and for his birthday wanted to do a superhero slumber party. We've done something similar for the past 2 years, and they all had a blast. So the party started around 3. We did pizza, movies, popcorn, and designed superhero masks. My son is/was friends with a boy named James from his class. He came to the last 2 sleepover parties, and while well behaved, it was his parents who I felt were the problem. When we send out the invites, we tell the parents when the party is and what time to pick the kids up the next day. For the last 2 parties, James was always the last one to be picked up. For his 8th birthday, we specifically stated that all kiddos should be picked up by 11 a.m. We had plans to go to my in-laws for his birthday party, which was on his actual birthday. We had 5 boys, including our son, at the party, and 3 of them were picked up by 11. At 11:30, I texted James' mom and asked if she was coming to get him. She said she was on her way. I assumed she ran an errand and was just running behind. No big deal. By 12:30, she still hadn't shown up. I texted her again and I reminded her that we had somewhere to be, and she needed to get here as soon as possible. She responded saying that she was eating lunch and would be there soon. By 2 p.m., I texted her again and let her know that she needs to pick up her son ASAP, that we're getting ready to leave in an hour, and her son was not invited to come with us. I had assumed that that would prompt her to come and get him. By 4 p.m., my husband left with our kids to my in-laws, and I called James's mother. I left her a voicemail and told her that if she was not at my house in 30 minutes to pick up her son, I was calling the police to inform them that he was an abandoned child. She showed up within 15 minutes to get him. She made some half-hearted apology about how she was busy with errands and running her other children to their activities. Today, I received a text message from her asking about why James was not invited to the sleepover party. Apparently, one of the other moms was talking about how much fun the kids had at the party, and she wanted to know why her son was not invited. So I told her the truth, that her son wasn't invited because I wasn't sure if she would come and get him in a timely manner and without disrupting our plans for the next day. I explained that anytime her son is at my house, she's always late to pick him up, and I was tired of catering to her schedule. She called me an uppity B-word and has since blocked me on social media and her phone. Am I the jerk for telling her why her son wasn't invited? I mean, she asked, you answered. Surely she must have some kind of understanding as to the reason though after you threatened to call the police last time she didn't come to pick up her kid. What really sucks most about this story is that it's Jason that suffers the most. He just wants to hang out with his friends and go to the fun sleepover, and he doesn't get to because his mom just can't get her act together and pick him up in a timely manner. I don't really blame our original poster for not inviting him if that would have ruined all of their plans for the next day. Jason's mom just needs to get it together and respect other people's time. My boss tells me that if I want to make more money, I should go work somewhere else. Well, thanks for the advice. About 4 years ago, I worked for a company that provided behavior services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I did individual consulting, parent trainings, data analysis, things like that. Think highly specialized mental care and support in home and community settings. Anyway, after 2 years of working there and getting another certification, I asked my boss for a raise. I was newly divorced and raising 3 kids, so I really needed the money. I had been working 10 plus hours a week of overtime to stay afloat. My boss knew about my situation. My evaluations were great, and I had been told I would be moved up to supervisor soon. So my boss had to have known this conversation was coming. This man looked me dead in the eyes and said that he knew I wanted to make more money, and my reviews were great. But he wanted to make sure I was loyal to the company mission. He told me he can tell when people are just looking to make more money, and we tell those people to go work somewhere else. He wanted to make sure that the new supervisor would put the company missions and families they support first. He told me that he couldn't offer me a raise at that time, but he would get back to me. No date was set for a follow-up meeting or anything. I started applying for new jobs that day. Within 2 weeks, I'd found a position making double the salary for only 40 hours of work a week. As it turns out, I was being severely underpaid. Shocker, I know. The day I handed in my notice, my boss and the owner were in a meeting about my new position within the organization. Of course, no one said anything to me about it beforehand. They sent me an offer, which I politely declined because it sucked. Then they tried to hire me on as a contractor at a rate that was at least 25% lower than every other contractor rate in the city for my position. So I turned that down too. My boss and the owner were both shocked that I rejected their offers, especially since they were willing to offer me so many perks. They were giving me the opportunity to become a great leader in the company and believed I was a great employee who would do so many great things within their organization and things like that. I reminded my boss that he's the one who told me to go work somewhere else, and then I stopped responding to their messages. Thanks for the advice, jerk. Yeah, that would be a massive red flag for me as well. It sounds like you've worked very hard and have already been very loyal. It's not time for you to be tested. It's time for the company to put up. Clearly your boss was going to avoid doing that at all costs. And yeah, I'm not surprised to find out that you were massively underpaid. Sadly, a lot of the time, that's the way it is. You'll make more money switching between jobs than you will trying to work up the one that you're at. Now, I'm not saying that's the situation in every case, but in a lot of very standard positions like retail, the actual pay increases you get are very minimal. You make a lot more by switching up locations. I'm happy to hear our poster made out well for himself though. Anyone's gonna be happy after just doubling their salary, unless your salary was 0. Today, I discovered that my 1-year-old is smarter than most of the people that call me for tech support. I spent 3 crappy years working in a call center, 2 of which I was roped into acting as tech support, despite the fact that I'd originally been hired to sell insurance. The calls I got made me weep for humanity. After my son was born, I decided not to return from maternity leave. I just couldn't handle staying up all night with a screaming newborn and then coming into work and calmly asking people how the heck they can't see the huge red create an icon button smack dab in the middle of the page. But they're able to find our phone number in tiny font up in the corner to call and demand that we do it for them. Well, you guys, my baby's now a toddler and I just had that misty-eyed, hand-on-heart proud parent moment that you always hear about. My son was playing with his brilliant baby laptop, which is basically a bright plastic clamshell that plays music when the baby mashes the keyboard. Suddenly, the music stopped. The baby was confused. Further button mashing had no effect. I watched from the sofa as my son frowned, experimentally smashing the buttons harder. Then, I looked on in amazement and pride as he turned it off and on again. "Welcome," it announced, the screen lighting up in a joyful display. My son contentedly returned to his button mashing and I shed a proud tear. So what if your kid can say mommy and daddy and knows how to use a spoon? Mine can troubleshoot. He's smarter than half the jerks I had to deal with in tech support. This is definitely a moment you're gonna look back on as a parent. It's gonna be their wedding day, their graduation, and the day they learn that turning a laptop off and back on again will fix 95% of the problems you're having. As someone who used to work in a PC specialized electronics store, trust me, this one hits close to home. It's ridiculous some of the problems that you have to deal with, and a lot of the time they just want you to do it for them. That's not why I'm here. My mother-in-law went to a lot of effort to make me a really nice vegetarian meal, but I secretly ordered chicken wings instead. I'm currently pregnant and have been experiencing some really strange cravings lately. Before meeting my husband, I grew up non-vegetarian, but I made the switch to vegetarian after we got together. My husband and his entire family are strict vegetarians. Recently, my mother-in-law came to stay with us to help out when the baby's born. 2 days ago, she went out of her way to prepare a special meal for me, and I truly appreciated her effort and the thoughtfulness behind it. I ate everything she had made and complimented her cooking. However, throughout the entire meal, I couldn't help but think about chicken wings. The craving was overwhelming, and after lunch, I ordered some chicken wings for myself and disposed of the waste in the kitchen bin, completely forgetting that my mother-in-law would see it when she used the bin. Later that evening, she found the wrappers and confronted me about it. She was visibly upset and felt hurt, believing that I didn't like her food and that I preferred ordering out. I tried to explain that it was just a pregnancy craving and not a reflection of her cooking, but she was deeply hurt and disappointed. Now my mother-in-law is being distant and is avoiding me, and my husband is being neutral. He did express he was upset I ate chicken as we are vegetarians, but he's not picking a side and told me that he's staying out of it. I'm on maternity leave, so I'm with my mother-in-law all day. My husband is on call most days, and when he is at home, he's mostly asleep. I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or what to do to fix the situation, and I genuinely have nothing against her cooking. I just had a craving, and I didn't think this would still be awkward 2 days later. I thought it would just blow over. I can't really say you're being a jerk for falling victim to a pregnancy craving. I'm sure a lot of women in your position have the same thing happen, where they're a vegetarian and they get cravings during pregnancy that they just can't help but give into. I really don't think it's anything that you should be held accountable for. If your family is that strict about being vegetarian, I'm sure you're going to make the switch back afterwards. You might not even have another craving, who knows? It might have just been a one-time thing. I told my ex-husband he's not allowed to attend our child's birthday party. I, 34-year-old female, and my ex-husband, 36-year-old male, divorced 2 years ago due to differences we weren't able to reconcile. We share custody of our 7-year-old daughter, Lily, and have managed to maintain a relatively civil co-parenting relationship. However, things recently took a turn for the worse. Last week, Lily turned 8, and I decided to throw her a birthday party at our home. I had planned the event meticulously, inviting Lily's friends, our family members, and a few close neighbors. I wanted it to be a special day for her. However, when I sent out the invitation to my ex-husband, I specifically mentioned he would not be able to bring his girlfriend. Now, my reasoning behind this decision is that my ex-husband has been dating someone new for the past 6 months, and Lily hasn't had much interaction with her. I didn't think it was appropriate to have a stranger present at her birthday party, especially since my ex-husband and I agreed to introduce new partners to Lily gradually. My ex-husband, upon receiving the invitation, immediately called me, furious and demanding an explanation. He accused me of trying to exclude him from Lily's life and claimed that he had every right to be there for her special day. He argued that his girlfriend had already met Lily on a few occasions and saw no issue with her attending the party. Naturally, this turned into a heated argument, with both of us standing our ground. I firmly stated that I didn't think it was fair to Lily to have a stranger present, regardless of a few brief meetings. My ex-husband insisted that he had just as much right to be there as I did, and accused me of being spiteful and controlling. The argument escalated, and we ended up involving our respective families, who took sides and added fuel to the fire. Some of my family members supported my decision, claiming that Lily's birthday should be about her and her closest loved ones. However, my ex-husband's family argued that he should be allowed to attend and that his girlfriend was an important part of his life. Therefore, she should be included. We couldn't reach a compromise, and in the end, my husband threatened legal action if I didn't allow him to attend the party. This left me feeling torn between wanting to make Lily happy and not wanting to escalate the situation further. Am I the jerk for excluding my ex-husband from our daughter's birthday party? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. At no point did you say he couldn't come. You said his girlfriend couldn't come. Whatever your reasoning may be, that's your decision if you don't want her in your home. It is in no way an attack on him or an attempt to keep him away from his daughter. Him threatening legal action is gonna go nowhere for him because you haven't denied him anything. He's blowing this whole thing out of proportion because he wants to bring his girlfriend. If he wants to have a special day with his girlfriend and Lily, then that's up to him to take them out and do something. You're not obligated to have her at the party. My sister accused me of feeding my niece dog food. I'm a 20-year-old female. My sister, Jane, 28, her daughter, 9-month-old Lucy, and our mum, Sarah, who's 50, all came to visit me a few days ago. One of my housemates has a dog, and during warmer days, we make frozen banana and peanut butter oat balls for the dog to have as a treat. They're entirely edible for humans. It's literally a banana, a scoop of peanut butter, and a cup of oats. That's it. Anyways, Lucy was fussing, and Jane tells me that she's in the teething process and asked if I could freeze some of the baby's food for when she needed to eat in an hour or so. I agreed and asked if she wanted to give Lucy a frozen peanut butter oat ball. Jane agreed and Lucy loved it. About 2 hours into the visit, my housemate gets back with her dog and goes into the freezer to get one of the frozen treats, and my sister gets all antsy. My mom and I ask what's wrong, and she asks if I made the treats for Lucy. I said no, they're technically for the dog, but it's safe for human consumption. Jane freaks out and picks Lucy up and goes to the car. She's crying about how I gave her daughter dog food and how I should have disclosed that it was made for a dog, but I didn't think that it mattered. It didn't have dog-only ingredients or anything. I tried to talk to Jane, but she won't respond and is genuinely insisting that I fed her daughter dog food. Our mum is split. She thinks Jane is being ridiculous and says she's only on her side publicly because she's a new mother. Was I the jerk? I don't think you were being a jerk at all. They sound amazing. I'd love to have one myself. Honestly, that sounds like one lucky dog. But regardless, she's a new mother, so I understand why she's very hesitant about what her child is eating. But I would think that once you had explained all the ingredients to her, that she would understand that it's completely harmless. Whether it's made with the intention of the dog or not, it's still perfectly edible. I'm sure you guys munch on them yourselves every now and then. She's definitely overreacting, and I don't think your mother's really helping by continuing to support her when she doesn't really agree with her. If anyone is gonna have some oomph and wake her up a little bit, it's gonna be mom. I can't see this being something that she holds on to for a long time. Surely she's gotta wake up and see that you weren't trying to harm your niece by intentionally feeding her dog food. My daughter chose her real dad over me for years, so I refuse to walk her down the aisle. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. My daughter, 26-year-old female, and I haven't spoken in years. When she was 15, we found out she wasn't my biological daughter, and my wife had cheated on me years ago with a friend. As it turns out, this so-called friend was suddenly interested in playing dad. My wife and I divorced. My daughter learned the truth, and I told her I still loved her no matter what. Of course, she was interested in now getting to know her biological father, and while it hurt, I tried to accept that. She started pulling away from me after that. Even when still trying to do things together as a family, she was no longer interested. The last straw was when she was 20 and living at my house. We were arguing because she dropped some of her college courses, hasn't done anything for 3 months, and was mad because I told her she either needed to go to school or work if she wanted to stay here for free. She told me that I'm not her real dad, so stop pretending like I am, and she'll just go stay with her real father. That broke me, honestly. But I told her if that's how she really feels, then there's nothing left to say between us. And she did move out to go live with him. I was depressed for a very long time and drank quite a bit. My son, 24-year-old male, was my only reason to keep moving forward. For the first couple years, I reached out to my daughter. She wanted no contact. I learned to accept that and moved on. It helped me find more peace in my life. My son stopped talking to her for a while over this and was angry with her as well. They still chat sometimes, which doesn't bother me at all. Through him, I learned her biological father died in October 2019. Also that she's engaged. She reached out to me and first said that she knows we haven't talked in a while, but wants to ask me if I'd be willing to walk her down the aisle. After a pretty long message about how she hurt me in the past with her actions, I told her no. She didn't want me to be her father anymore, so I learned to no longer view her as my daughter. This turned into a fight between us because according to her, it's not her fault she wanted to know her real dad. And I agree with her. It's not. But what was her fault was how she treated me ever since. In my mind, I know if he hadn't passed, we wouldn't even be speaking right now. It ended with telling her I hope she enjoys her wedding, but I want no part of it or her life. My sons told me she's ranting to my family that I'm ruining her day, and she thought parents are supposed to love their kids unconditionally. My brothers seem to think now that I'm being a jerk, and this is my chance to be in her life again. But I have no interest in that. Still seems everyone has a strong opinion on it, that I'm making it difficult for my daughter to have the wedding she wants when it would mean a lot to her. My son is on my side, but the comments are still wearing me down, and just for the sake of my own sanity, am I being the jerk? There's quite a bit to unpack in this one. First of all, I don't think you're being a jerk. You're justified in how you feel. I completely understand how her behavior and words could hurt you after such a long time of caring for her. What I will say is she was only 20 years old. She thinks that she understands how the world works at that point, but doesn't realize that she's still just a kid. The only issue is, from what I'm reading in this post, there was no attempt at a real apology from her here. She just wants you to play the role of her dad again. If there was a genuine apology on her part, I could understand being a little more hurt that you didn't want to do it. But she has to understand how much she hurt you and how her actions affected you. It's not something you can easily undo. I tried to help a random jerk until I learned he was a jerk. Short and sweet. I was waiting in line at the bank. This was in the throes of the pandemic, so they had us line up outside. Not a problem. This particular day, it was a bit windy. Again, not a problem for me. A guy gets out of his car, check in hand. You know where this is going. The wind whips the check from his hands, and somehow I managed to step on it as it scooted by me. I wasn't really expecting a thank you, to be honest, but what I definitely wasn't expecting was the guy chewing me out for dirtying up his check. Thanks for stepping on my check. The bank probably won't accept it now. Call me a jerk, but I lifted my foot up and let it blow away in the wind down the street and said, well, they definitely won't accept it now. The guy flipped his lid as he was chasing it down the street, and I got called up as next in line. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, dude, sorry, this guy actually just saved your butt and you're gonna give him a hard time? No, you completely deserve this. Next time, just learn to say thank you. Entitled Slacker wants us to do the work for him, so I tell him we will. I just finished a big group project worth about 30% of our total grade. The groups were selected for us, so I didn't know anyone beforehand. So like any other group, there's always a slacker who just piggybacks off everyone else's work. This project spanned the entire length of the term, and this slacker just did the absolute bare minimum or nothing at all for each of our deliverables. So here comes the end of term, and we have to submit our final report, which had to include a video demo of our app, and this made up a significant portion of the marks. Of course, the slacker puts it off till the last possible minute to tell us he's not home and will be busy the day of the submission. Our group was planning to record the last day because the rest of the project had to be finished to demo it. So obviously I'm peeved, cause this dude is just being a huge pain. But I tell him, it's all good man, we'll just cover your part in the demo. He happily agrees as he won't have to do anything once again. Here's the kicker. In the requirements of the demo, every member has to be in the recording or you won't get any marks for that portion. Clearly this guy didn't read the rubric and so he thinks he's getting a good deal. If you didn't participate in the demo, you get a 0 for that portion. Bet this guy is going to be confused why his marks are so much lower than the rest of us. But I'll leave it to you guys. Am I being a jerk about this? As far as I'm concerned, this guy's going to be getting the grade that he's earned. It's not up to you to get him through this class. That's entirely on him. He's the one who's decided to waste time and try and float by. So he's going to get a grade that reflects that. It's not fair if you have to do all the work and he gets the same grade without having to do anything. That's not how group projects work. I told a girl she needs to see a doctor instead of picking up the cues that she was actually hitting on me. This was about 3 years back and it hit me like a truck while I was watching TV today. I met this girl at a camping event and we hit it off pretty well. I was pretty religious at the time and took the whole no sex before marriage rule to heart. dating wasn't allowed into my family until you hit 18, and I was 17 at the time. The reason I'm saying this is to explain why I was dense and didn't notice any of the hints. Back to the story. We hit it off at camping, and by the end of the trip, she asked for my Instagram, to which I replied, I don't use Instagram. Then she asked for my Snapchat. I don't have Snapchat either. Finally, she asked, what do you use? And I told her Facebook. You'd think her going out of her way to add me on a platform she hasn't used in years would be a hint. But no, I'm just there thinking, at least she'll get to know how good Messenger is now. Fast forward about 2 weeks, and we've been talking consistently for a while now, and she's been subtly mentioning all these ideal dating spots in the city. All I could do was reply, wow, looks like a great spot. Let me know how it is if you ever go there. At this point, she went for the Hail Mary. She sent me a picture of her thigh, pointing out a mole that she hasn't noticed before. I went into diagnosis mode and told her, Google says it could either be a mole or cancer. She laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't, and asked if I was free for a video call. I answered the call, and there she was, naked in a towel with the camera zoomed in on her cleavage. And she says, I noticed a mole right here too, as she points the camera right above her nipple and almost slips the towel. Me, being the Dumbo I am, respond, hate to break it to you, but I ain't a doctor. If you're worried about it, you should really have it checked out. The call ended abruptly afterwards, and she stopped messaging me after that day for a week. Then she blocked me. I was dumbfounded and thought, if she really hates being my friend that much, then she should have at least had the decency to be upfront about it. Fast forward to today while I was sitting at my place watching Netflix when, out of nowhere, this flashback hits me like a truck, carrying years worth of my obliviousness. I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but I think I kinda came off as one. Oh, I'm sure she thought you were a massive jerk, but at the end of the day, you just didn't know any better. It's honestly just a funny story. I don't think it's anything that you really need to feel bad about. That's not your fault that you didn't learn to pick up on these cues until later in life. Mind you, she was being pretty obvious about it, so a little bit of it is on you. I would just consider it a missed opportunity and move on. I got fired from my IT position for not working on a doctor's personal home computer. The company swiftly imploded as a result. Back in the dark ages, around 1993, I worked for a medical transcription firm as their system admin. We were doing some cutting-edge IT stuff, in getting transcriptions printed at the hospital remotely, using print queues with the modem number hard-coded in, and the system would look for queues with anything in them, and dial the number if it found anything in that queue. It worked really well, until it didn't. I was the only system admin in the city, so I was on call 24/7, 365, and was averaging 3 hours of sleep per night, when I could go home and trying to catch little cat naps here and there when I could. Anytime something would go wrong on the hospital side, I would have to go to the hospital and fix it. A few months after I started, 2 of the VPs from corporate relocated to my city, since we were the most productive city with the highest profits. The first thing they did was come up with an excuse to fire the current director. Then they took over operations themselves. Then my job went from taking care of our systems to taking care of the doctor's computers too. I did what I could, but I was also sending out resumes. Then one day I was told to go to a hospital and see why the printing stopped. I remember this day. I hadn't been home for 2 days and had been going non-stop for 18 hours. I get there and someone had unplugged the modem. I plug it back in and a call comes in and jobs start printing. This doctor walks over and tells me that VP number 1 told him that I would go out to his house and work on his home computer. I politely explained to the doctor that I can't do that and that I'm heading home to get some sleep. Then I head back to the office to pick up a few things before heading home. As soon as I walk through the door, I get escorted straight to the VP's office. Both VP1, VP2, and the office manager are there. They proceed to start chewing me out. I just started laughing at them. I'm the only person in 1,000 miles that knows anything about this system. They lose their temper and tell me I'm fired and am to leave immediately. I really said thank you and then left. This was on December 15th, my oldest son's birthday. On the way home, I stop at a mom and pop computer store where I know some of the people to drop off a resume. They tell me that they have no openings right now, but will call me when they do. I talk to a couple of friends while I'm there, then head on home. The only thing I'm worried about is telling my girlfriend that I got fired. I walk through the door and she's at work. I see the answering machine blinking, so I hit play. It's the mom and pop computer store, saying their primary Novell engineer just quit, and am I still available? I call them back and let them know I'll be there tomorrow. That began a much more peaceful career, with better pay, rotating on-call, and most every weekend and holiday off. By the way, the medical transcription firm imploded. The VPs were fired. They floundered for about a year and were bought up by a competing firm. But whatever, those jerks deserve it. I don't understand how higher-ups sometimes can't fathom how important a specific employee is, especially when it comes to tech support like what this guy was doing. Like they said, no one else knew how to handle the problems that they knew how to handle, and I can almost guarantee that there were plenty of issues after our original poster got let go. When he said he got home and there was a message waiting on the machine, I was seriously expecting it to be the VPs saying that they had screwed up and needed him to come back. I'm glad that our poster was able to find another job so quickly though. A lot of people aren't that lucky. I returned the birthday gift I got for my boyfriend after he insulted me about my colorful past. I, 26-year-old female, dipped into my savings and got Mike, my boyfriend, 27, a PS5 for his birthday yesterday. He knew he was getting the PS5 because he told me that the PS5 is the only thing he wants. We've been together for 4 years, so the cost didn't matter. That is, until I found out what he thinks about me. Some background. When I was 18, I was involved with Jake, a guy who I met online. We ended things after 3 months and I moved on shortly after with Adam, a guy from work. I found out a couple months later that Jake and Adam were actually really close friends, but I didn't know Jake long enough to meet his friend group, so I had no idea. After finding out, I took some time off dating, and 2 years later, I met my current boyfriend, Mike. I was upfront and honest with Mike about my past, and the fact that I was unintentionally involved with friends. He said he understood and my past didn't bother him. Last night, at his party, I showed up with the PS5, and him and his friends were screaming with joy. His best female friend, Jessica, laughed and said, "I wish I was a thought so I could afford a PS5 too." I looked at her with an "excuse me" look on my face, and she just said never mind and walked away. I confronted my boyfriend about it, and he said, and I quote, "She's just messing with you. You can't take a joke." So I pushed further as to why this girl is even calling me names to begin with, and he said, "Well, everyone knows you were a thought before you met me." I asked him to explain how I was a thought before him, and he said, "You know, messing with best friends." He then pat me on the shoulder and said that it's okay, because I'm not who I was back then, and if he could get over my colorful past and thought mentalities to give me a chance, then I could get over Jessica's comments and give her another chance. I didn't say anything. I just got up, took the PS5 from the gift table, and left. He was not happy. He literally called me like 20 times, but I didn't care. I was so hurt that I took the bow off and took it straight back to the store I got it from. They happily refunded it. I thought that I was done, but Mike and all his friends, including Jessica, are berating me for being petty, and they're all saying I brought this on myself by making poor choices. I responded to Mike and told him that he deserves better than me, so find someone who wasn't a thought and get the PS5 from them because I returned it. He started screaming about how I'm the biggest jerk for returning it and how I should be happy he ignored my colorful past. I'm thinking maybe taking it back went too far. Am I the jerk? I don't think you're a jerk at all. Honestly, like that's gotta hurt a lot to hear that from someone that you've been with for 4 years. It sounds like he has a completely different image of you from the person that you actually are, or were at least. And it goes beyond his own mentality of you, because he's now going around saying all these things to his friends, who are then gonna develop the same opinion of you. It's not a colorful past because you dated people who happened to be friends. You weren't even aware of it at the time. And you know what? Even if you did, I don't think it's that big a deal because you were only with these guys for a couple of months each. You've been with your current man for 4 years now. Surely he knows you better than that by now and would understand that you're not that kind of person. Him acting all high and mighty like he's overlooked your dirty past is just gross. My roommate's friend opened a very special bottle of wine and I'm demanding that she replace it. I, 23-year-old female, share an apartment with two roommates, 28-year-old female and 25-year-old female. My 28-year-old female roommate, Morgan, sometimes has friends over, and they'll watch movies and drink something, usually wine. I don't really drink wine, just once or twice a year on special occasions. The most recent time was because my sis wanted to do a wine tasting while we were on a trip together. At the winery, I found the first wine I've actually enthusiastically liked, a spicy wine infused with hot peppers. I bought a bottle, took it home, and put it in my section of the shared pantry. A couple of months went by without incident. Then, one Friday night, I came home to Morgan and two of her friends drinking it. I confronted her about it, and she said that her friend had opened it without knowing it was mine. Morgan apparently realized the mistake, but thought it would be okay because I've said that I don't like wine before. What makes you think that made it okay? I've said that before, yes, but this is literally the only wine I've ever enjoyed enough to buy a bottle of. I was saving it for a special occasion, or maybe to share the next time my sister came to visit, but they drank most of it, and now there's barely a full glass left. I told her I wanted her to replace it, and she agreed. Well, a couple weeks later, she said that she'd get me another bottle, but it was just regular wine from the liquor store. I told her that she must have misunderstood. I don't want just any old bottle of regular wine. I want her to get me another bottle of the actual wine that she and her friends drank. Her eyes got really wide, and she started complaining about how that winery is a 3-hour drive away, and that wasn't fair because it was her friend who opened it, and not her. Honestly, I told her that I didn't really care. Morgan knew it was mine and let her friends drink it anyway. She could have told her friend that it was mine and to put it away, and then told me about it and I would have understood. But no, she let them go ahead and even poured herself a glass. She was still drinking it when I came home. So am I being the jerk here? Okay, I get where you're coming from, but I do think you're kind of being a little bit of a jerk. You're roommates, these things happen. Her friend accidentally opened a bottle of wine that you really like. Is it really worth straining the relationship over though? I get it, you don't drink a lot and this was one drink that you do actually like. But mistakes happen, and like I said, you still have to live with this girl for the foreseeable future. I don't think it's worth butting heads over. I would say the next time your sister's in town that you guys go up to this winery again and get a new bottle, and that Morgan can pay for it. I get that that means that you have to make the drive, but I don't really think it's fair to have her drive 3 hours because her friend made a mistake. I really do see where both parties are coming from on this, but I'm gonna have to say that you are being a little bit of a jerk. But again, I understand why. I have a brother that's 7 years older than me, and we've never been particularly close. To be honest, he isn't even all that nice to me. A few years ago, he got married, and I was asked to be a bridesmaid in his wedding. I felt like it was just for show since her brother was a groomsman, and they wanted the big traditional church wedding. I really didn't want to, but in the end, I did it to make my mom happy. Now I'm getting married, and we're having small wedding parties that are only people close to us. We're definitely not going traditional. One of my bridesmaids is a dude, and his sister is one of the groomsmen. Now it's a big thing, and my sister-in-law is upset that I didn't ask her to be one, and my brother is peeved because he claims it's the right thing to do to ask her. He's debating coming to the wedding if I don't ask her to be one. I really don't want to. She'll take over everything and make it what she wants it to be. I also only want people I'm actually close to be in my wedding party. My mom is asking me to just be the bigger person and ask her and keep the peace. But I really don't want to. Does that make me a jerk? You said it yourself that you're having a much smaller wedding. You don't need to fill out a large wedding party. You're not gonna take off someone who you actually care about to put this person on. That's just not gonna happen. And it's your wedding. You should have who you want up there. They don't get to dictate that. And the fact that your brother's threatening to not even come to the wedding if you don't ask her to be a bridesmaid says a lot as well. Maybe you're just better off with them not coming at all. Just something to consider. I got fired from a job I didn't even have for violating their dress code. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This is from the 80s. I was the East Coast expert on a big mainframe company network gear. I was associated with the manufacturing plant, but I did customer site visits to help field engineering either install or more often fix installations that weren't working. On customer visits, it was suit and tie. Since I often worked in computer rooms, I never wore white shirts because of the dirt issue. My default was an up and down striped button down shirt in a pale blue or green or something like that. I flew to Boston to work with a sales droid on configuration of a system they were trying to sell to a big bank. Sales droid says minor change. First, we need to go to this mandatory sales droid meeting headed up by the regional VP of sales. Fine. I get there and it's a sea of white shirts and ties, and me in my colored shirt. I sit in the 5th row and the room has about 50 to 60 people. The regional VP gets on stage, doing his best to excite the troops to go out and sell millions. Everyone's clapping and cheering, and mid-sentence he sees me and stops.
Hey, you, where's your white shirt?
I look around and figure he may be talking to me, so I point to myself.
Yeah, you in the blue shirt. All of my staff, everyone that works for me wears a white shirt.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Thanks? Get out, and don't come back until you're wearing a white shirt.
You want me to go and not come back unless I'm wearing a white shirt?
Yes, get out, now!
So I get up, walk to the aisle and go, hey, do you know who I am?
No, I don't effing know who you are, and I don't effing care. Out.
Super. Then for the rest of you, I'm Original Poster, the East Coast expert in networking product out of Plant Name, and I work for the director of engineering there. So I don't work for him, and it's unlikely that I'll be back since I don't own a white shirt. I left, flew home, and received frantic emails from the sales droid about his customer. The next day, I dropped into the director of engineering's office to give a trip report. He starts, so Original Poster, you were a big hit at the sales meeting. VP of sales called to apologize and wants you to come back. Nope, not gonna happen. If he comes here wearing a colored shirt and apologizes to me, I'll consider it. He's not going to do that. Fine, I'm not traveling to that region. I'll talk to people on the phone. I can do my job just fine that way. And I walked out. I called my sales droid and said we'd work over the phone, but I'm not coming back up. The guy was not happy, but understood. A week later, reception calls that I have a guest. I go to the lobby and there's my director and the regional VP of sales wearing a blue shirt. Best apology ever. I hope he wasn't as quick to be as much of a jerk in the future. This is probably one of my favorite stories I've gotten to read so far. I think everyone loves a good story about someone from corporate getting humbled. I really wish more of us got this opportunity. Our Original Poster just happened to hold all the power, and the VP was sadly unaware of this. Looks like he had to learn the hard way, but somebody had to teach him this lesson. My girlfriend thought she was stronger than me and then got all upset with me when she found out she wasn't. So this happened a few years back. When my then girlfriend and I started dating, I discovered early on that she can be quite physical, in the sense that she likes to push, hold, and even punch. Bear in mind, she's not actually trying to hurt me. She's just playful like that. I found this both adorable and fun, so I played along. And here's where I screwed up. If she pushed me, I would act like I had to balance myself, or if the better sofa was nearby, I would fall onto it. If she held me, I would pretend that it was difficult for me to get out of her grip. If I pushed her and she resisted, I would pretend it was hard work. Same with me trying to hold her arms and things like that. You get the idea. I always assumed she knew I was playing along and not actually physically straining myself to compete with her strength. This went on for months. One day we were chilling on the sofa watching a show when I realized I was running late to meet some friends. I told her I need to shower and make a move. She decided this was a good time for a play fight. She sat on top of me to pin my arms under her knees. I played along and pretended to struggle to move her off me. A little more wrestling took place with me playing along like I normally do. Then I told her I really need to get going. She wasn't done and continued to hold and push me back onto the sofa. Eventually, I decided I needed to win this little fight and get going. So I got her onto her back, held her hands near her head, and leant down to kiss her on the cheek a few times and let her know again I was running late. She tried to move her arms and couldn't. While struggling, she grunted out, "Why are you so strong today?" I laughed and looked at her like she was joking. Her eyes went wide with comprehension and she stopped struggling. "You're always this strong?" she asked, almost to herself. I replied, "Come on, babe, you didn't really think we were of equal strength, did you?" I then went to take a shower, got ready, and as I was heading out the door, I noticed that she might have been a little glum. Me, being fully aware that I don't fully comprehend the mystery of female emotions, had no clue why she was upset. I did what all men do, I guessed. I gave her a kiss and said I won't be gone long and that I can pick up her favorite Chinese food on the way back. I assumed she was upset about me not spending the afternoon with her. I get no reply. I should have spent some time talking it through. I instead went on my merry way and had a great time with my friends. She spent the next few hours brewing, simmering, seething, and of course, overthinking. I came home with the Chinese, and as soon as I put it down on the dining table, she sprung out of the corner and attacked me. It genuinely surprised me, and I reacted by bear hugging her to my chest. She struggled with more force than she normally would, and I just held her. I kept asking what was wrong. She gritted her teeth and said, "You lied to me." Eventually, she stopped trying to fight me and I let her go. She then told me how she feels like I lied to her about our fights, and that really all the time I was laughing at her in my head as I pretended that she was actually winning. I tried to take the conversation seriously, but come on. How am I supposed to take this seriously? So I may have been somewhat mocking, flirting, and generally being a jerk about the whole thing. A week later, she broke up with me. So was I being a jerk? I remember reading someone's story on Reddit where their girlfriend was getting lippy because while he hadn't been working out, she had been aggressively strength training and had decided that she was stronger than he was. Eventually, he got tired of being called out and lifted her weight rack with all of her weights on it to make a point. And she was both flabbergasted and frustrated that for all of her training, she was nowhere near being able to do that. This one's a little awkward. I mean, yeah, that is kind of the way it goes in general. Our original poster didn't say anything about either of their physiques, so we don't know if they're smaller or larger than average, either one of them. If we're going off a general assumption here, then yeah, the guy is typically gonna be physically stronger. And of course, in situations like this, he's gonna be holding back. He's just playing around, and of course he doesn't want to hurt you. He's never gonna use his full strength. I don't think you were a jerk in this situation. I feel like you were probably just doing what any other boyfriend would have done. Unfortunately, she just seemed to have misread the situation, I guess. I just find it kind of odd that it upset her this much. I was a whistleblower at my former company and they told me I needed to delete all my files or they would pursue legal action. So I did. I had a decent job. The pay was weak, but it was easy and my team was really good with me. Then COVID happened and my manager colleagues lost sight that being a manager is a duty to serve your team and not a right to be power hungry. They'd post in chat cruel or nasty things about team members and fuel gossip. After witnessing this, I decided I wanted out and gave my manager the heads up that I was leaving and then went on my leave. I was told that no job could accommodate my needs since I was trying to swing my hours and stay working from home, and that I would be lucky to find better. This didn't go down well and they slowly dissolved my department and made my team's life miserable. I took a photo of the instant messenger and sent it to a colleague to whistleblow. Despite nothing to say, the group I am was confidential. I got served with a cease, desist, and delete or legal action. Now, during COVID, I made many reports to make working from home a dawdle. This was many Excel and Google Sheet docs that fed into each other and access to policies, all the shebang. All things that people need on the fly. They were being used on the daily many times. Okay, well, you want me to delete all documents from home and my personal accounts. Not a problem. The next day, I had people asking where the reporting had gone. I just watched it all unfold. The kicker, I found a job that gave me all I asked for and a pay increase. I'm so glad to be done with those jerks. Yeah, screw those guys. Like our original poster said, the manager is meant to be there to support the team, not trash on them. It's your job to make them successful, not to put them down. They're there working hard for you. For you to go around behind their back and just be talking all kinds of smack to the other managers, I know how I would feel as an employee if that happened. No way I would be sticking around to work for you. And I really appreciate our original poster for actually sharing what was being said about these people. And it sounds like he managed to avoid any legal consequences while also screwing them over a second time. So that's just icing on the cake. I refuse to attend my daughter's gender reveal for her lizard. I think this is literally really stupid, but she's really upset about it. I'm 48 and my daughter is 23. She has a blue-tongued skink who she heavily adores. She jokingly refers to it as her daughter. I found it weird, but she says it's because it's the closest thing she'd have to a child, and she feels a strong emotional bond, similar to a child. She's decided to remain child-free for multiple reasons, and I've been very supportive of this decision. Well, she recently took her skink to the vet for a checkup, and she was excited to find out what her skink's gender was. Afterwards, I got a text asking if I'd come to her gender reveal party she was having. She explained it was just a small get-together with cake and food for her friends she hasn't seen in a while, with the gender reveal being mostly a joke, and a way to make fun of gender reveals. Well, I didn't come. I didn't see a point. It's just a lizard, and I'm a busy person. She later called me and expressed she was kind of sad I didn't come, because it had been a while since I'd seen her, but she understood I was busy. I told her she couldn't actually expect me to come to a gender reveal for a lizard. She said that it wasn't a real gender reveal, that was more of a joke, and it was really just a small gathering to catch up with everyone. I told her if that was the case, she should have just called it a gathering because I'm not coming to a gender reveal unless it's for a real granddaughter. She got quiet for a minute and then turned my words around, claiming I wasn't supportive of her decision to be child-free. I told her she can't possibly expect me to treat a lizard as a granddaughter. She told me she didn't expect me to, but it was clear I didn't respect her bond with her lizard and her decision, and that she just wanted to see me, and my reason for not coming was hurtful. I told her she was being ridiculous over a lizard. She claimed it wasn't over the lizard, and it was a gathering, and not even centered around the lizard. But I stick by what I said. It's ridiculous to have a gender reveal for a lizard. She hung up, and I got a message from her best friend about how I'm a jerk for treating her that way. But I don't think I'm a jerk for not wanting to go to a party for a lizard. My issue is that she said the party was a gender reveal. If she had just called it a party, I would have come. But calling it a gender reveal makes it sound like it's for the lizard. And I'm not going to that even if it's a joke. Even though I don't agree with my daughter for being child-free, I have been supportive and only shown mild frustration. The reason she decided to be child-free is she claims she's asexual. She just doesn't want one. She has emotional baggage and feels unable to care for a real child. She fears pregnancy and she has a carrier gene like me, and doesn't want to go through what I did. I had 4 miscarriages and a highly defect child that died after 3 months due to the gene. Yes, there has been slight tension between us because I think she just hasn't found the right man. She never dated growing up. And her other fears are unnecessarily exaggerated, but it's ultimately her decision, and I don't resent her. We haven't seen each other in 3 months. I'm a single mother, and we've always been close, which is why she invited me with her friends. I just didn't want to go to a party with a lizard. And if it wasn't for the lizard, she should have called it a party instead of a gender reveal. I don't know. Am I being the jerk here? Yes. Yes, you are. Despite the fact that your daughter has tried to make it very clear to you why she wanted you there, you seem to be completely missing the point. She said in your initial conversation when she invited you to the party that it was a joke. It wasn't a real gender reveal and it was just a gathering. You're the one that's adding this massive label of the gender reveal of the lizard. She just thought it would be funny. At the end of the day, she just wanted to see you and wanted to spend time with you. That little stab about a real granddaughter was completely uncalled for. You say you're supportive, but also say you've shown mild frustration, which I get. Your feelings are valid, but I completely understand why your daughter would not want to try and go through a pregnancy after all the issues you had. I feel like you've just completely missed everything your daughter was trying to say to you, and that you're not understanding a lot of her feelings. Maybe you need to sit down and talk, because I don't think even you understand exactly where your stance is on her not wanting to have a child. I'm sorry, but yes, you were being the jerk here. I confronted my sister at her wedding reception when she told me her wedding was child-free, and it actually wasn't. I'm a 46-year-old male. My sister Tracy is 29. We aren't close, but we have a good relationship, at least before all of this happened. Tracy got married recently, and she told me the wedding was child-free. I have a daughter, Ella, who's 12, and asked Tracy if she could come, but she said sorry, she and her partner were sticking to the rules. I managed to arrange for Ella to stay at a friend's house for a couple of days since the wedding was in a different city. So I went to the wedding and I saw quite a few older children, including my other siblings' kids. I know this sounds like I should have known from before from my other siblings, but I never thought to ask them, "Oh, are your kids going?" I did ask my brother at the wedding, and he said he was told the child-free limit was only for really young kids, the disruptive ages. It was obvious Tracy lied to me about not bringing Ella. We went through the ceremony, and towards the end of the reception, I pulled Tracy aside and said I realized she'd completely lied to me, and there were plenty of other kids. She looked pretty uncomfortable and said it wasn't a big deal, but I replied that I deserve an apology, and so does Ella at some point. Tracy got mad and said I was ambushing her at her own wedding, and it's her and her partner's choice what they do. We ended the conversation there and went off to talk to other people. She sent me a text later saying that I was being selfish, and that I'm the one that should be apologizing to her and her husband for making a big deal out of this. I'll admit, I sent a not so nice text back about her caring more about aesthetics than people. Now it's sort of blown up within our family. Was I the jerk? What I don't understand is why your kid specifically was singled out. I mean, I don't know exactly what the cut age off was in their minds that they consider to be the disruptive ages, but I would think that 12 is okay. Like, you're pretty well behaved at 12. You have a good head on your shoulders. I wouldn't really call a 12-year-old disruptive. So yeah, I don't know if this is a personal thing, but it just doesn't really make sense to me. What I will say is this conversation could have waited for another day. It didn't have to happen at the reception. I totally understand being upset and wanting some answers as to why your daughter was left out. But just for that day, just let it go. Maybe message her in a couple of days and talk about it then. But I just don't think that that was the right time. I refuse to hang out with my autistic brother. So I have a twin brother who's severely autistic. He isn't exactly low functioning, but he's close. We both are about to finish our junior year of high school, and honestly, I view him as a burden to my social life. Growing up, our parents made sure we spent a lot of time together. They would insist that I play with him. He always made it hard for me to make friends because he was always acting so clingy to me and utterly embarrassing. With online classes from COVID, I felt happy because I didn't always have Zach hovering over me at times. Ever since we went back to school in person, I was reminded of how much I hated the way he affected how other people treat me. Whenever my friends wanted to hang out, my mom would demand I brought him along with me. They'd just stop inviting me to stuff. Today, I wanted to hang out with a girl I like after school and told Zach to walk home. He started screaming and called my mom, and she told me I had to either let Zach hang out with us or I'd have to go home. So I decided to just go home. On the way home, I started screaming at Zach, telling him he wasn't normal and he's ruining my life. I said that we're done talking when we aren't at home. He started crying and just sat on the sidewalk having a meltdown. Our mom had to come get him, and I've been arguing with her saying that I'm done with Zach and I'm almost an adult. I'm not wrong here, right? Am I being a jerk? Oh, there's so much to unpack on this one. Okay, let's start off with yes, you are being a jerk. Your brother probably loves you more than anything in this world. He's confused and scared, and he sees you as a source of comfort. And this is how you're treating him in response. That's not fair at all. You have to understand, like you said, he's not a normal person. He doesn't understand what he's doing. He doesn't understand the conventions of social life. All he knows is that he wants to be around his brother. Now, with all that said, you say you're in your junior year of high school. So you're what, 17? I understand how important a social life seems to you at that age. But let me tell you something. 95% of these people that you're spending your time with in high school are not going to be around once you graduate. You are going to have those few select friends that you really continue to spend time with. And then even those are going to start to trickle away. Life happens and they're not going to be around anymore. Your brother is always going to be there. He's always going to care about you. While I understand where your feelings are coming from, being an adult means understanding that just because you're feeling something doesn't make it right. You need to be able to have a wider perspective of things and see things from other people's point of view. Right now, you are being a selfish jerk. Hands down, no questions asked. I really hope that you can find it in you to understand your relationship with your brother a little better. And at the same time, maybe mom can step in and occupy your brother a little more to let you have more of a social life. Because yes, there is a need for that. But do not trash your autistic brother for it. That is a jerk move. My gluttonous husband eats all the food meant for me and the kids. So I show him what hunger feels like. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This might sound silly, but my husband loves food. Not gaming, not YouTube. His weakness is food. I don't hold this against him in any way, but he eats a lot. He's fit and regularly attends the gym. But sometimes I'd find myself cooking bigger portions of food because he'd attempt to eat from our daughter's plates, leaving them still hungry. We always run out of snacks as well, so there are times when I have to cook twice a day. Yesterday at 4 p.m., I was out with the girls to get new haircuts. I had already prepared dinner and left it in the fridge till we got back. I told my husband that I'd put his portion aside for when he got back from the gym, so he could go ahead and eat if me and the girls were going to be late. I called him from the salon and he said he got home and had his dinner and was doing some work in his office. At 8 p.m., me and the girls returned home, and I quickly went into the kitchen to reheat dinner because we were so hungry. I opened the fridge and the food I prepared was gone. I asked him and he said he felt hungry after eating early and ate our dinner. I was angry, but kept thinking, what were we going to eat? I kept looking for another option, and when I asked about other foods, he kept shaking his head saying we already ran out of this and ran out of that. I bluntly said he was selfish to eat the girls' dinner. He said he couldn't help it. He's always hungry. I went to order food from the restaurant for just me and the girls. When our order arrived, I called the girls and sat to eat. A few minutes later, he walked out of the office and was upset that we didn't call him to join us for dinner. I told him he already had dinner, not once, but twice, and that I did not include him in our order since he's already ate. He lashed out saying that I was doing this deliberately, ordering from his favorite restaurant, pretty much all restaurants are his favorite, and that I was excluding him from dinner and teaching the girls to treat him as though he was unwanted at the dinner table. I called him selfish. This dinner was for me and the girls, since he already ate our previous dinner that I spent time making. He admitted he was wrong to eat our dinner, and said he felt bad afterwards, but said it was totally worth it. There's no doctor, therapist, or pastor that could help him out with this problem. He's just a man who loves food. But I was behaving passive-aggressive towards him and implying that him liking food is a problem, which is incorrect. We argued for a while and then he went back into the office, saying I should feel bad for excluding him from our meal. Needless to say, he hasn't spoken to me ever since, and keeps teasing the girls about no longer sharing his snacks with them since they were okay with me excluding him from dinner. Am I the jerk here? No. I think your husband actually has something wrong with him. Like, has he been to the doctor? Does he have a tapeworm? Does he have a little alien growing inside him that just absorbs half the food he eats? Maybe he's pregnant. I don't know. But something's up. How can you eat essentially 4 dinners and still be hungry? Seriously, something's wrong here. Beyond her husband's potential health issue though, he is just being a jerk. You knew that food was for your daughters and you chose to go ahead and eat it anyway. You could have made something else for yourself if you were really that hungry. But the way he's describing it really does make me think something might be wrong with him. Please, go to a doctor. I fixed my girlfriend's parents' internet router and now they think I watch gay adult content. My girlfriend's parents are not very tech savvy, so she offered to help her dad connect to the router. She wanted to connect using the WPS button, but on this model router, it's also the reset button if you hold it. She managed to reset their router completely. Her mum was going off at her, so she rushed home to grab me and I went to go fix it. Her mum gave me a little book of emails and passwords and I went through the setup steps by connecting to the ISP and setting a Wi-Fi password. Everything seemed fine, so I went to test it in Google by doing a quick smash of the keys and pressing enter. Nice, we're connected. My job is done. My girlfriend's mum then came around my side of the table to grab the little book of emails and passwords again. She paused for a while looking at my laptop, and there it was. One of the search results of my random smash of the keyboard happened to be a GIF of gay adult content from a very popular adult website. I then tried to explain what had happened, thinking it was a pretty funny coincidence, but that just made the whole thing even more awkward. So my soon-to-be in-laws now think I watch gay adult content. They probably think I was a jerk playing a prank on them or something. That is a very unfortunate coincidence, but I have to agree it is also pretty funny. It's a shame your future in-laws couldn't see the humor in it. I would think it's pretty obvious though that that wasn't your intention when you were typing in that specific search. You very clearly just would have hit a bunch of keys, and I'm sure she could see that in the search bar. Like, come on, relax. We all know what's out there on the internet. My cheating boyfriend's mother called me begging me to take him back, and then said that she was just too upset to talk. So I found out my now ex-boyfriend was cheating on me and gave him a few hours to pack some essentials and leave my house. Not going to lie, I was shattered by this whole thing, and my only thought was getting him out and changing my locks. This was the man I thought I was going to marry. He's on more than one occasion tried to talk me into eloping. I'd turned my entire life upside down time and time again for him and his family because of that ugly little thing called love. I packed the pups up and went to my parents while he packed. Cue the phone call from his mom. She's sobbing. I'm sobbing. She's telling me how sorry she is, and please can't I forgive him. He has nowhere to go. She said some awful things about him actually, but under it all was that undercurrent of me letting this go because he loves you and I need to take him back and work it out. Yeah, he also loves his new little side piece too, according to his chats, but I digress. When I don't budge, she sobs that she is too upset to talk. I'm sorry, which one of us got cheated on? She then tells me she'll call me back before she hangs up. She then calls my mother and almost word for word repeats it all to her. I don't know if she realized I was sitting right there with her. The only difference is she tries to guilt my mom into talking to me about forgiving him because he has nowhere to go. He's in a hotel. He has to stay in a hotel. He can't afford that. She has to forgive him. When my mother informed her that that really isn't any of our concern right now, I'm too upset to talk. I'll call you back. It's been over a week. I don't think either of us are getting that call back. I'm just glad to be done with that jerk. Yeah, that's unfortunate that that happened, but at least you found out before the wedding. Things would have been a lot harder on everyone involved if it was after the fact. All I can really say on this one is you move forward and you'll find someone better. This is kind of a blessing in disguise. It hurts now, but now you're done with that person and you can move on and hopefully find someone better. It is kind of sad he had to get his mom to call and apologize and beg to take him back though. That's a little much. I refuse to lend my car to my irresponsible sister. I, 28-year-old female, recently got a new car, and I'm really proud of it. It's my first big purchase, and I've worked hard to save up for it. My sister, 25, is aware of this, and has been hinting that she wants to borrow it for a road trip she's planning with her friends. Now, my sister has a history of being irresponsible with borrowed items. She's returned things damaged or not at all in the past. Considering the sentimental value attached to my car, I'm hesitant to lend it to her. I've expressed my concerns to her, but she insists that she'll be careful and promises to return it in the same condition. The thing is, I don't fully trust her. I've seen her reckless driving habits and know how she treats her own car. Additionally, my car insurance doesn't cover other drivers, so if anything were to happen, I'd be left dealing with the consequences. When I declined her request, my sister became upset and accused me of being selfish and stingy. She argued that family should support each other, especially in times of need. Our parents are also pressuring me to let her borrow the car, claiming it's just a one-time favor. I feel torn. On one hand, I understand the importance of family and helping each other out. However, I can't shake off the feeling that something might go wrong, and I don't want to risk my car. Am I a jerk for refusing to lend my car to my sister? I don't really think you're a jerk for this one. All of your arguments seem perfectly justified. The one big thing is that she's not on your insurance. God forbid something happened. Not even her fault. There would be big problems. At the end of the day, she's not the only driver on the road. She can be as careful as she wants. If some other jerk screws up on the road and runs into her, it's still a problem. Obviously less of a problem than if she was at fault, but still, it's going to be an issue. And she has her own car. I don't understand why she wants yours so much. I mean, you say she's going away with a couple of friends, so maybe yours has more space. But that doesn't mean that she's entitled to it. My cousin thought it would be funny to prank her bridal party, so I've decided I no longer want to be a part of it. I'm a 26-year-old female and my cousin, 29, got engaged a few months ago and asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was so excited to accept. Her sister, 32, is the maid of honor, and there are 3 other bridesmaids. The date is set for April 2024. On April 1st of this year, she sent a PDF to the bridesmaids group chat that really made me angry. It was a list of wedding party responsibilities, rules, and regulations. It included a picture of the bridesmaid dresses that we'd be wearing. They were hideous, and she told us that we'd have to pay $800 for them and that they only went up to a size 8, so anyone bigger than that would need to lose weight before the wedding. That also made me angry, because I wear a size 10, but also she's like a size 12, so even bigger than me. Here are some of the other ridiculous things she added. None of us were allowed to be tanner than her for the wedding, so she told us that none of us could spend significant time in the sun for the next year. She wanted to have longer hair than all of her bridesmaids, so she said that we'd all have to cut our hair to our shoulders or shorter. She wanted to do a choreographed dance with all of us and insisted that we go to 3-hour dance classes with her every Sunday until the wedding, a year away. She also said that she wanted her bachelorette party to be in Paris, and that we would all need to chip in $3,000. There was more, but I was so angry I stopped reading and muted the chat for a few hours. I was so livid and hurt that I decided to drop out of the wedding party, but I didn't say anything right away. The next day, I checked the group chat again, and everyone else had been chatting about how funny the bride's prank was. Apparently at the bottom of the PDF it said April Fools, but I hadn't read that far because I was so mad. Everyone else thought it was hilarious, but it still really rubbed me the wrong way. I reached out to the bride to tell her how much this hurt my feelings, and she did apologize. But even though it's been almost 2 months, I'm still really angry. I decided this week that I no longer want to be a bridesmaid because of the mean-spirited prank, and I told my cousin. Now she's really hurt and angry, and the maid of honor and other bridesmaids and some of my family members are blowing up my phone, saying that I'm overreacting to an innocent prank. But I believe that pranks are only funny if the recipient finds them funny, and I definitely didn't. So am I the jerk? I'm gonna have to go with, yeah, you're being a jerk on this one. It was not a mean-spirited prank in any way. She clearly thought everything on this list was just as ridiculous as you did, and wasn't asking that of anyone. The fact that she would make a joke like this would mean she would never ask this of anyone. I really don't understand why you're so upset about it. I get at first you didn't know it was a joke, but once you found out, I would think that you would have let it go. And now 2 months later, you're still hanging on to it. It just seems completely unreasonable on your end. There's something else going on here. Something else in this hurt you. You specifically lashed out at the bride on the comment about dress sizes. I don't know, maybe your weight is a sensitive issue for you, but you're bringing in some kind of outside thing to this. This was not the bride's intention at all. It was an innocent joke. You need to let it go. I got accused of being a jerk for standing up during a Beyoncé concert. So I'm a huge Beyoncé fan, and have been my whole life, especially being a Houston, Texas native. This was my first time being able to afford a ticket to her show, and I'm currently living back and forth between Sweden and the States. I've never been to a concert in Sweden, and I was very shocked at how unlively the crowd was. Really, no dancing or singing from most people in my section, closest non-GA to the stage. But I was out of my seat, singing and having a blast as soon as the show started, and a woman and her partner behind me asked if I could sit down so they could be able to see. I assumed since she was starting the show with ballads, I was doing a bit much and apologized and sat. But once the energy picked back up, I was back up on my feet dancing. There were 2 other people in my row doing the same. I honestly had the time of my life, and even cried a bit. Ridiculous, I know. When the show was over and I turned to leave, the lady said, "You're not the only one who paid for this, you know? Is that how they act in your village?" And I was too stunned to say anything back. I could understand if this were an orchestra concert or something, but her latest album is focused on house music and the ballroom scene, which is very lively. This happened weeks back, but I can't even enjoy my memories of the experience because I keep getting this pit in my stomach, feeling like I ruined someone else's experience. Am I the jerk? Sadly, yes, you are the jerk in this situation. While I completely understand that you're a huge Beyoncé fan and you're so excited to be at her concert, you just want to move around and have a great time. You need to understand that you're in a different country, where people behave different socially. Apparently, in Sweden, it's more the norm to just stay in your seat and enjoy the show. You say there were 2 other people in your row dancing, but how many people were sitting? That's what you need to be paying attention to. You unfortunately did ruin this show for the people behind you. They asked you politely, and in your excitement, you got back up and were doing it again. I totally understand, but yes, you were being a jerk. I straight up told my sister-in-law that just because she's a doctor doesn't mean she's better than everyone else. I, 34-year-old male, hosted a dinner party with my wife, 32-year-old female, for my entire family. It included my sister, 30-year-old female, her wife, 33-year-old female, and their 2 kids, 5-year-old girl and 3-year-old boy. There were also other family members, including my cousins, aunts, etc. My sister-in-law is a doctor. She absolutely loves that, and is a bit of an arrogant person when it comes to that. For instance, she goes all out to comment on every supplement my mom takes, and tells her which one's necessary and which one isn't. Or told my wife about a few things when she was pregnant, despite the fact that she's not an OB/GYN, she's a cardiologist. After dinner, one of our youngest cousins, who just started college last year, was talking to my sister-in-law about her career. She went into detail about it, how hard it was, how rewarding and special it was, and how no matter what others said, the stress they were under could not be compensated for financially. She was talking as if she was the only one with a job, and other people are just wasting their time. This is how she is all the time. I had about enough of it. I told her the fact that she's a doctor doesn't make her better than anyone, and that she was acting like she was the only one who did something that mattered here. She just laughed and asked me what my deal was. I called her out on her behavior. I said she's just a person, and I don't care what she does for work. My sister lightened the situation, but later called me a jerk for taking a shot at her wife and told me she was disappointed in me. My wife is on my side. Was I being a jerk? Strictly based on this interaction, I'm gonna say yes, you were being a jerk. You kinda snapped off on her when she was just having a conversation. Being a doctor is no small thing. I understand how if it's something that comes up all the time and it feels like it's being shoved down your throat, that it can get annoying. I feel like this is definitely a straw that broke the camel's back situation. It was something small that you've kind of made into this big deal. The fact that you're saying your wife is on your side is kind of the only thing that's giving me a little bit of hope for you here. That maybe you are right and this is a reoccurring annoying behavior. But like I said, looking at this contained situation, all I see is you acting like a jerk. Don't make a chicken out of a feather. I told my husband I don't want him coming home for lunch anymore. I'm a stay-at-home mom with a 1-year-old, and my husband sometimes likes to come home for lunch. It's a hassle, because at the time he has his lunch, it's also our baby's nap time. So you can imagine how annoying it is when she's about to fall asleep, but up she bounces when her dad comes through the door. It's even harder to put her down after he leaves, because now she's grumpy and tired. Also, he has an hour of lunch, so it's 20 minutes to get home, 20 minutes to eat, then 20 minutes to drive back. He'll leave a mess, taking out his lunch and dirtying the dishes, and then it's up to me to clean up after him and sweep up the dirt from his boots. Which is even more annoying when I had already finished cleaning that half of the house, and now I have to do it again. I finally had it today when I had to mop the floor in the kitchen after I told him it was wet and he got his muddy boots on it. He asked me why I was annoyed, and I told him, "Why do you think I always pack a lunch for you? So you can have lunch at work." He seemed hurt by this and just threw the rest of his food away, again caking mud on the floor I just mopped. Then he left. I've cooled down since then, and now I just feel like a jerk. So am I a jerk for feeling this way? Or am I a jerk for the way I chose to say my words? I don't think you're being a jerk at all. I think you just have a lot on your plate, and there's some communication missing here. Your husband's driving 40 minutes during his lunch to see you for 20 minutes. I think he just wants to spend time with you and the baby. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're right that you don't need him coming in and waking up the baby right after you put them down, or messing up the house that you just cleaned. I get that that would be frustrating, but there just needs to be some communication here. I think that would honestly solve all of the problems. Mechanic sues grandpa for fixing cars for free and gets schooled when grandpa turns hobby into thriving pay-what-you-can auto repair business. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. My grandpa was a successful man, and in his mid-60s, he decided he wanted to take a step back, so he started selling off his businesses. He sold his various businesses and spent the next few years traveling. As he approached 70, he got bored, in addition to a few new grandchildren, so he needed a bigger house. He sold the old home that he had bought after he got back from Vietnam and bought this massive house on this large piece of land. This property also came with a massive steel barn. Not sure if he ever told anyone about his plans, but right after he got the property, he dumped a ton of money into tools and equipment and converted his barn into a mechanic's dream. Here's just a couple things I remember him having. He had a professional lift capable of lifting full-size trucks. He had those professional oil catchers you see at Quick Lubes. He had a dedicated air compressor system that was designed to power all his power tools. He had a tire machine to mount new tires. He had so much equipment. His tool corner was a massive corner of this barn. His plan? To fix cars, especially for people in need. He lived in a rural community. If you didn't have a car, that was a big problem. So he let everyone know at his local church that he was willing to work on their cars if they provided the parts. He only took a few jobs a week. He was doing this to enjoy himself and help those that needed it. He'd of course do oil changes, change the transmission fluid, and all kinds of various repairs. My grandpa was a talented mechanic. However, he kept the amount of work limited. He was also selective. If you were in need, he'd want to fix your cars. If you had the means to pay, he'd decline and ask you to go elsewhere. One day, the owner of a local car dealership came by and told my grandpa he needed to stop fixing other people's cars because he wasn't properly licensed, didn't have the proper insurances, and was hurting his business. My grandpa explained this is just his hobby. He only does a few cars a week. The owner told him he needs to cut it out or he's gonna sue my grandpa out of business. My grandpa said he laughed over this. What business was this guy gonna sue him out of? The owner walked out. A little while later, my grandpa got served. He was being sued by the owner of the car dealership. My grandpa thought he'd take a trip down to the dealership and try to reason with the man. My grandpa hoped he could come to an understanding. He spoke to the owner and basically explained he only works on people's cars who are down on their luck. The fact is, the people whose cars he was fixing probably couldn't afford to pay a professional dealership to fix their vehicle. He explained that he only does a few cars a week, and he's not all that interested in getting into a fight over his hobby, but he isn't going to back down. Well, they ended up in court. By this point, my grandpa had hired a lawyer who was able to get the city to approve a commercial garage on his property. It helped that he lived on the outskirts of town and had 6 acres of property. The court told my grandpa his auto repair shop is operating illegally. If my grandpa wants to continue, he's going to need to get a business license, get the proper insurances, and if he does that, he'll be good to go. Now, what do you think a man who has nothing but time and money in this situation is going to do? He's going to get his business license and insurances, of course, which he did, and that surprised no one. But he went further. He got a dedicated phone line ran into his shop, hired a full-time mechanic, put up a professional sign, and set up a little waiting area with a water cooler. What shocked everyone even more, he ran a local TV ad saying he was a pay-what-you-can mechanic shop, reservations only. He put ads in the local paper saying the same thing. Yeah, that's right, folks. My grandpa is not only a licensed legal auto repair business, he is a certified mechanic on his payroll, and he's running ads. As for his prices, they were quite simple. You either bring the parts yourself and pay the mechanic whatever you wanted. Mechanic got a separate wage from my grandpa, so if you couldn't pay anything, that was fine. Or you could have my grandpa source the parts for you. He'd charge you for the parts and you'd pay the mechanic whatever you want. My grandpa started taking jobs, and boy did that shop get busy. It was impossible to beat Grandpa's price. Grandpa was essentially paying to fix your car for you. My grandpa would spend his days with the mechanic that he had hired working on cars. He loved it. The owner of the local car dealership was furious. He sued my grandpa again. They went to court and the judge basically said my grandpa owned a licensed, insured auto repair business. What he charges his customers for his services is completely up to him, even if that means doing the work for free. About a year or so later, my grandpa gets a call from a lawyer who says he's representing a potential buyer of the local car dealership. However, the buyer wants to speak to my grandpa. My grandpa agreed. He sat down with the new potential buyer who expressed his concerns about buying the dealership. Service is a major profit center for a dealership, and he's considering buying the local dealership. However, he doesn't want to buy the dealership if my grandpa is going to keep operating the way he is, because it's impossible for a for-profit business to compete against someone selling their services for free. My grandpa agrees that there's no way someone looking to make a profitable business could ever compete against him, so they came to an agreement. The owner buys the dealership, and my grandpa would only work on a few cars a week, maybe 5 or 6, only work on people's cars who are down on their luck and probably too poor to be able to pay a professional dealership to fix their car. Any parts he needs he will buy from the dealership, and any work he declined he'd refer to the dealership. The new owner of the dealership agreed to let my grandpa be and stay out of his way, and that he must hire my grandpa's mechanic. They shook hands, the local dealership was bought out, and for the next 9 years, my grandpa would fix people's cars who were down on their luck. If he had to buy parts, he'd buy from the dealership. As for that mechanic my grandpa hired, he ended up becoming the service manager and did quite well for himself. As for my grandpa, when he was 80, he had a heart attack in his shop. Luckily, one of his grandkids was there and they got him to the hospital and he made a full recovery. But the doctor told him his body couldn't handle working in that garage anymore. He ended up shutting down after that, and for the next 3 years, he looked out his kitchen window staring at his shop, remembering all the fun he had in his garage. He passed away at 83, surrounded by friends and family. My grandpa was a really great guy. That jerk from the dealership just messed with the wrong person. This has gotta be one of the best stories I've read so far. I love what Grandpa was doing here, and I wish more people that were able to do stuff like this did it. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, people tend to hoard their money to themselves. Your grandpa was a very generous person. I guarantee he was bleeding money running that shop, but he did it in the interest of other people, to make sure that they were able to get by. This jerk from the dealership that was getting in his face was just upset that he wasn't able to line his pockets with extra cash. He kind of brought it on himself by having your grandpa steal all of his customers. It seems like your grandpa was ready to be perfectly reasonable with him, and he was with the following owner of the dealership. I don't see what the problem would have been. The dealership still would have made 90% of the profit they were going to make, I'm sure, considering that the only customers he was taking was people that were down on their luck. And then everyone who was down on their luck can still be able to get by without having issues with their car. It just seems like a win-win for everyone. My abusive ex-stepfather asked me to call the police if I knew anything, so I did. I, 29-year-old female, lived with my mom and her new boyfriend, who we'll call Jerkface, when I was a child. They met when I was 10 years old. From the moment I met this man, I never liked him. He gave off the most terrifying vibes, and even as a child, I could instinctively tell that there was something wrong with this man. Fast forward 6 years, and my mom and Jerkface are getting married, on my birthday no less. I have 3 new siblings in that time from their marriage, and this man for the past 6 years has made my life miserable. He was physically and verbally aggressive almost every single day to me, my mom, and siblings. However, he did and still does have a particular dislike towards me. To this day, I'm still not sure why. He would exclude me from family events, force family members to not give me presents at Christmas and birthdays, to then humiliate me on those events and make a scene of me not receiving gifts. He would body shame me as well. I was 11 years old when he did this, mind you, and called me a slut for wearing a skirt. He spent about $50,000 of my inheritance on himself, mostly on stuff like mountain bikes and things. He would hide my phone for no reason, so I couldn't contact my father or friends or extended family. He wouldn't let me eat the yummy food, but would sit there and eat it in front of me. He ruined the very expensive 4-wheel drive my mum bought as an adult out of my inheritance. And once he ruined it, left it at its demise place, which was out of town in the backcountry down a steep slope and in a creek for me and my mum to sort out. He had stolen cars and motorbikes, started a bushfire, tried to pin a break and enter of a friend's house in the middle of the night on my boyfriend, and that's just a snippet of the charms of this literal awful human being. I moved out very shortly after the wedding, and at 16 was living on my own, juggling 2 part-time jobs, full-time school, all in a brand new state and a brand new city. But it was a heck of a lot better than living at home. Fast forward again another 10 years. I'm 26 years old at this time. My mom has finally had the courage to separate from Jerkface with my 3 siblings after years of further abuse from Jerkface. He still tries and terrorizes their lives and controls them and demonstrates very threatening behavior, but at least they're out. My 3 siblings chose to stay with my mom, for obvious reasons, but still had to have visitation with their father due to custody arrangements. Jerkface always had a lot of resentment towards the children for this, but can you blame them? Fast forward now to present day. I have full care of the oldest of my 3 younger siblings, as she wanted to escape Jerkface and move states to live with me. I fully supported this because I've always tried to help where I can. The youngest of the 3 stays with mom. The middle child, my brother, was very traumatized by Jerkface's behavior, and consequently has a lot of untreated trauma and behavior to go with it. I tried to take care of him and let him live with me and my family at one point. However, he also was too violent for me to handle. Jerkface actively stopped my brother getting the mental help he needed. I believe this to be that it might have held him accountable if my brother told anyone anything too incriminating. My brother moves back to my mother and youngest sister. He's also too violent for them to handle. Side note, I understand my brother's behavior is not okay, and unfortunately, a lot of it is learnt behavior, and when he has sought out help, Jerkface quickly stopped that. I'm hoping in the future he can finally get the help he needs. Anyway, last week, Sunday, my brother assaulted a family member when at my mom's house. My brother was escorted off the property by police and taken to Jerkface's house to live now. I get a message from Jerkface on Wednesday for the first time in years, saying, "Your brother's missing, the police have been
been called. If you know anything, call me or the police.
Instant panic sets in. I feel like a scared child again from a very benign message from this man. I sat looking at this message all night wondering what to do about it. That's when it came to me. Jerkface asked me to call the police if I knew anything. Jerkface did not specify what I had to know and tell the police, just that if I knew anything to call them. So I did. I called the police and told them that I felt I had some very important information to tell them regarding my missing brother. I told them everything. I described all the abuse that had happened to me and my family at great lengths. I told them that if they return my brother when they find him to Jerkface's house, that they'll be putting him in direct danger. I told them absolutely everything. The police were very interested to hear this about Jerkface, and put me on hold while the police officer I was speaking to went to discuss something with her superior. When I get taken off hold, I'm talking to a more senior officer now. He wants me to reiterate the story, which I do. He says someone will call me back. I think, okay. I get a call back not too long after, and they ask if needed, would I sign a statement to what I had said? Of course I agree. I go down to my local police station to sign said statement regarding what I've told the police. There's now an arrest warrant out for Jerkface for a multitude of reasons. Seems there was more on his police file that I wasn't aware of, and I was told that under no circumstances would Jerkface be getting my brother, when he was found, or any of my other siblings back in his care. Now he won't be able to hurt my family anymore, so that's worth smiling over. It's been a slow burn to see any kind of justice come to this evil, entitled, crappy jerk, but my patience eventually paid off. First off, I'm sorry it had to get to such extremes before anything was actually done about this, but I'm glad that you stepped up. I understand why maybe it took some kind of triggering event to do this. You had put it behind you up till now, and getting that message from him just brought up all those old feelings again. I'm glad you were brave enough to make the call. You've definitely at least done your brother a massive favor. Not to mention any of the other kids that may have eventually ended up in his care. At least they don't even have to spend any time with him anymore. Warrants out for his arrest is also a good thing. Him being behind bars and away from other people is probably better for anyone who knows him. My entitled in-laws kicked my sister-in-law out when she came out, so I forced them to sell the same house. My sister-in-law came out as a trans woman when she was 18. My wonderful in-laws kicked her out of the house then and there. They told her to leave the house and threw her out at 8 p.m. with no money or even any documents. And her father took the car keys from her too. She had to walk 8 miles to get to our place. She was crying, and of course we took her in. This is horrible behavior, but my husband and I would have just cut them off if that was all they did. But they doubled down. They refused to hand over any of the documents, and my brother-in-law had to go over and barge into their house to get them. They also cleaned up all the money in the joint account. She had saved up $8,000 working part-time all through high school. They took the money and also sold her car, which was in their name. They were trying to ruin her life as much as they could. My father-in-law is a small-time businessman, and his biggest account was supplying my employer. I had helped him get the contract, and it was very lucrative for him. My employer was a family business, and they treated long-term employees more like family than employees. I was talking to my boss about what happened. He told me that if I could find someone within 5% of the price my father-in-law offered, they would make the switch. My father-in-law offered us really great rates. He was very good at his job, but he had screwed up the contract. Because even though we always bought from him, we weren't obligated to buy from him. We could switch suppliers anytime, but he got complacent and assumed we wouldn't switch suppliers. It took me 6 months of painful searching to find a supplier who could replace him and get us great rates. This was not a major part of my duties, and I had to put in way more hours than normal to find the supplier. But when I did find them, I waited for a month before informing my boss. You see, my in-laws had been planning to do major renovation for a long time, and it involved tearing down a major portion of their house. I waited until the renovation work had truly started before informing my boss. We started to get supplies from the new supplier the next month itself. It crushed his business. It screwed his unit economics, and he had to scramble to find new customers. They ended up having to sell their house to save the business, and they didn't get a good rate for it because the house was, well, half torn down when they sold it. My in-laws did try to get money from my brother-in-law, but he told them to screw off. My father-in-law is a decent businessman, and he did crawl his way out of the hole they dug for themselves, but even 8 years later, they still haven't bought a new house. I've heard they're still sour about what happened. I mean, I was just doing my job, and if they had kicked her out, they would have still had the house. What goes around comes around, jerks. Honestly, I don't know why your father-in-law didn't see this coming. Could he not read the room as to the family's reaction of him throwing out his daughter was going? Of course you're not going to continue to supply his business at that point. I do gotta say, you really picked your moment to strike. You definitely screwed them over for years. But honestly, they had it coming. It's one thing if you disagree with what's going on with your daughter, it's another to actively try and ruin her life, which is what they were doing. They deserve to get a little comeuppance. I tried to help out a homeless girl and got completely screwed over in the process. Over the weekend, I was staying at a popular UK chain hotel and thought I was going to be there until Sunday night. Well, 1 PM comes and I get back to the hotel early from having lunch, and it turns out they have a strict checkout time of 12 PM to get your money back. And I really don't want to stay there all day by myself, miles away just for the sake of it. Over in the corner of the hotel lobby was a little lounge area with a sofa and some armchairs. There was a girl who must not have been much older than 18 or so asleep on the sofa, and you could tell from her appearance that she was sleeping rough and had come inside out of the rain. The hotel reception staff walked over to her and were asking her to leave, which I understand, but I felt horrible for her. I followed her out into the car park and offered her my room key if she promised not to trash the room and as long as she checked out on time. She agreed, and so I went on my way, not really thinking much about it other than how she wouldn't have to sleep outside in the rain. I spoke to my brother later on, and he informed me that if something bad happened to her in the room, then it would be on me. So I was panicked all last night. I tried calling the hotel to tell them the situation, but couldn't get through. When they called me this morning, it turns out that she didn't only trash the room, but that she also urinated in the hallway, tried to smash the vending machine, and was in general a disturbance to other guests. The hotel informed me that I'd have to pay for any damage, and the reception lady gave me a very stern lecture about why they don't just give people rooms when they show up like that. Lesson learned, but at least an 18-year-old girl didn't have to sleep outside in the rain and be open to any number of dangerous situations for a night, I suppose. She didn't have to be a jerk and screw me over though. Hope your lesson was learned. This happened once in a hotel I worked at. Guy paid for 3 nights. Stayed 1 and partied with 2 women. Left them to stay for the other 2. When housekeeping went in, everything was destroyed. TV, lamps, furniture, bed, everything. He was only charged $1,500 for damages and tried to dispute the charge, saying he wasn't the one who did it. We asked if he knew the women who did the damage, and he couldn't even give us a name. His wife called a few days later wanting an itemized bill of damages and photos to use in her divorce case. I feel really bad for our original poster on this one. He was genuinely trying to do something nice for someone in need. It's unfortunate that it got taken advantage of the way it did. I'd like to think that most people wouldn't do this when given this opportunity to actually sleep in a bed when you haven't had that chance in a while, but I guess it really depends on the person. I do totally understand the decision to want to help her out though, and I have a lot of respect for our poster for doing that. I'm really sorry you got screwed over.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.